Robert Pinsky, and once the editor of the New York Times, Jill Abramson, is going to be with us for our Press Play segment. I'm very excited about that. Ask the Mayor, Michelle Wu, will be with us from 12 to 1. The end of this month, April 28th, also at the Boston Public Library. Good morning, Jim.
Hey there. And by the way, we want to thank everybody for coming, but there are very few people here today, so there are a lot of seats. If anybody wants to come on down on a beautiful day, you should do it. And by the way, if you've been listening to NPR's live coverage of the Supreme Court's oral arguments on birthright citizenship, Trump is in the courtroom. First time a sitting president has ever done that. If you want to continue to listen to that rather than us, you can do it online at gbhnews.org. Again, gbhnews.org. We're going to start today with Trump's ultimate April Fool's joke, which is the war in Iran. As Trump loves saying, he'll get things done in the next 2 weeks. With his expected wartime address tonight at 9 o'clock, which we'll carry live on 89.7, we're opening the lines to get your thoughts on the future of this war. Trump's big, beautiful plan, leave the Strait of Hormuz to somebody else to open up, telling our European allies, who we didn't consult, it's their problem. They have to learn how to fight for themselves, suggesting that he may even take the United States out of NATO at some point. Basically, the strategy is we like breaking things, and unlike Colin Powell, who once said, if you break it, you fix it, we have diplomacy through Tomahawk missiles, but then someone else can clean up the mess. The lines are open at 877-301-8970 to call or text. And obviously we have to throw in that it appears that Israel, no matter what we do, will likely continue its own wars of aggression in Lebanon, annexation of the West Bank, plus the bombing of Iran. What do you want to see happen? What do you want to hear from Trump tonight? Can you afford for this war to continue? I mean, financially, for the war to continue. The number is 877-301-8970. It's a hell of a day. Birthright citizenship oral argument at 10 a.m.
Yep.
Artemis 2 is scheduled for blast off at 6:24 p.m. and Trump's speech is scheduled again for 9 o'clock tonight. You know, one of the changing dynamics. First of all, is regime change, which obviously has not happened, even though Hegseth and Trump says it has. Secondly, was to eliminate their nuclear capacity. We obviously haven't done that. They're up to 1,000 pounds of that highly enriched uranium that are still sitting there. And obviously the Strait was open before we attacked, and now it's closed, and Trump wants to leave it to somebody else. He and Rubio suggesting that we don't get much of our oil from the Middle East, which is true, but it's a global market, so obviously it affects us. And by the way, we'll talk to business editor Dan Primack at noon from Axios about what a winding down of the war might mean for gas prices and that sort of thing. But it seems to me what he's going to do tonight is do what he does better than anybody else on the planet, is lie for 20 minutes, say that regime change has happened, that we have totally obliterated whatever ends that sentence, and it's up to our European friends or former friends to fix the Strait problem. Is that not fairly obvious?
Well, you know, I was just, the whole thing is making me, I don't mean to be so morose at the start of the show, but it is making me sad. I mean, you think about, we've had previous wars, so-called wars that ended horribly. Everybody remembers the people trying to cling to the helicopters leaving the American embassy during the Vietnam War, or people flying off the roof, South Vietnamese trying to escape the North Vietnamese. We remember the disaster in Afghanistan with the Afghanis clinging onto the wings of the planes as they flew out. But I think they were trying then to sort of do more or less the right thing, even though it was a botched mess. This is like saying, okay, we went in and we just blew up all this stuff and we obliterated military sites, which is a good thing because Iran is a nasty place, but killed a lot of civilians, including schoolgirls that we've not admitted to, and closed the Strait of Hormuz.
That's a very good point. That story is almost like ancient history while the alleged investigation goes on.
At the rally yesterday, Saturday in Boston Common, one of the most moving segments was a section of a hill, and maybe every 2 or 3 feet they'd have a little pair of shoes or a little tiny backpack or a little red bunny rabbit or something that was in memory of those schoolgirls. And in the front they had pictures of these girls who were very, very young, and some of them were sisters. So families lost 2 or 3 of their children. So we haven't admitted to that. And we're just basically saying, hey, we screwed it up, but we're leaving. Let the Europeans fix it. I mean, there's just something so nasty about it.
Did you read Tom Friedman's piece in the New York Times?
Yes, he said it was embarrassing watching the American president flip-flop all over the place because he is going to...
It's in the New York Times, by the way.
Yeah, Trump is going to lie tonight, as he always lies. And that's really depressing, too. It's like there's no moral center.
Well, there's not only no
anymore.
moral center, there's no competence. I mean, Friedman says in his piece, with which I totally agree, they thought regime change was going to happen a minute and a half after they start dropping bombs there.
Yeah.
And Friedman says, Tom Friedman, there's a fairly simple solution. Forget the 15-point peace plan because it's far too complicated. Cut a narrow deal. Give us the 950 pounds of highly enriched uranium that could be part of a nuclear bomb, and we will agree we'll stop clamoring for regime change. And he says all the hostilities would end, the bombing ends, the strait is open.
But
you know what he leaves out of this thing?
And
Friedman has obviously 3,000 times more expertise than. However, what's going to stop Israel from doing what Israel does? How does that factor in to the hostilities ending part of it that Friedman says, matter-of-factly, would just flow if we agreed no more regime change? I don't see that.
Well, one of his better lines in his column was, Donald Trump is a man-child playing with matches, the world's most powerful military in a gas-filled room. And he also talks about how we were so much better off with the Obama deal that Trump ripped up about his first day in office the first time around, which allowed us to go in and examine what was happening with these nuclear materials. It wasn't a perfect deal. It didn't address the ballistic missiles, and obviously they've advanced a lot in the years since Obama was the president in terms of their capacity for ballistic missiles. But I'm share what Thomas Friedman said. I'm embarrassed by my country at this particular moment.
By the way, the 2-week thing, for some of you apparently you're not getting it, and some of you are. CW in Rhode Island text, the running joke in the movie The Money Pit is the contractors always say the house will be finished, quote, in 2 weeks, which obviously isn't the case. The movie has a happy ending, though, and I fear there won't be one for us. All we can hope for is our sad end is always 2 weeks away. Trump said last night, which is why the stock market is up 400 some points today. It was up 1,100 points yesterday. He said this should be over in 2 weeks, well, maybe 3, whatever. Let me just list what comes to mind quickly. He's going to decide if Putin can be trusted in 2 weeks. He really said this. His infrastructure plan. Remember the infrastructure plan the first term?
It was always infrastructure
2
week.
weeks.
That's right.
I mean, but obviously there is such a desire for this thing to end that places like the stock market, which respond to statements from the President of the United States, are buying it. And again, I am convinced, and I've been wrong many a time, I am convinced tonight he will declare complete and total victory. We obliterated everything. And by the way, on that note, before you go, Hegseth said, I think yesterday, that we, quote, neutralized the Iran's military, which I hope I get the chronology right, was hours before the Iranians struck a base in Saudi Arabia where they injured like 30 of our people. I mean, so, it is an endless succession of macho bragging BS from these sadists like Hegseth and Trump. It's just incredible. What do you want to see happen? What do you want to hear tonight? Do you want us to just get out of this thing despite the mess that we will leave behind?
One last thing about Hegseth. He talked about how we're going to show, quote, overwhelming violence of action against those who deserve no mercy. We ask these things with bold confidence in the mighty and powerful name of Jesus Christ, who everyone recognizes was one of the most powerful warriors of all time in the world.
Let's take some calls. Liz, you were in Dudley. You were on BPR. Welcome to the show. Hi.
Hi, Marjorie. Hi, Jim. How you guys doing?
We're good, thank you.
Good. Hey, I think I figured out what Trump wants for the American people.
What?
What's that?
It's called the 5S rule. He wants us sick, stupid, starving, scared, and submissive.
That's pretty good.
I think that's pretty good.
Did you come up with that, Liz, or is that going around somewhere?
I did. Just
that's very good.
Him with the health care, the education, the farms and ranches, scaring us with ICE. And then when all that happens, people become submissive.
What do you want?
That's what he wants.
Well, let's assume we're not submissive and take a position on this war. What do you want to hear from him tonight? What do you want your country to do, Liz?
Get rid of him. I want him to say goodbye.
Well, so do we all. I don't think that's happening tonight. Liz, thanks for the call.
I don't either. But that's really my biggest wish is for him to be out of that office because he's dangerous.
I think in that. Liz, thank you much for the call. 877-301-8970. By the way, I want to restate. I'm not being I mean sincerely that Trump and Hegseth had no idea what they were getting into, despite your praise. And I generally agree with you. He's at least professional. General Kaine.
Who's professional?
No, General Kaine.
Oh, General Kaine.
It's clear. They had no idea.
Well, supposedly General Kaine warned him about this.
He did. That's what the Washington Post wrote.
That they would probably close the Strait of Hormuz to ships getting out of there. He warned that there was no easy way out of this because the regime has been preparing for an attack from the United States, calling death to America. They've been doing that for, 47 years now? So they have layered in their leadership in a way. And meanwhile, this guy, the speaker, this Galbaf guy, is going after Trump on he's a big social media guy. Yeah, he's taunting.
He's ridiculed
Trump
him, too.
On these memes. And Nicolas Maduro was ridiculing Trump, and things didn't end well for him. So,
well, one more thing about the justifications of the war. The one that's been fairly constant is we have to eliminate the nuclear threat. Have we eliminated the nuclear threat?
No.
So,
that's what I don't understand. Why are they going to agree to that? And don't forget, when we were negotiating with them, not once but twice, in the middle of the negotiations, we attacked. Right?
Yeah.
So that makes us kind of an untrustworthy nation as far as they're concerned. And Iranians, not the people, obviously, but this nasty regime, they're not to be trusted either. But he's trashing all the time our allies, telling the allies to have some courage and go in there. And, he's talking about courage. You got a hell of a nerve talking about courage when you're a 5-time draft dodger.
Well put. Sumner, you're in Greenwich. Hi.
Hello.
Hi, welcome.
Hi. I'm a long-time listener, although I haven't listened for a while.
Why?
And I am very upset with you, Jim.
Why is that?
Because you commented earlier that Israel was going to continue its war of aggression.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, if both of you and Marjorie, I'm never sure what's the correct pronunciation is.
Yeah. Marjorie, it's fine.
You just referred to the 47 years. You can put it on. I'm sorry, in my car, is my son's car.
It's okay.
You've referred to the 47 years that the Islamic Republic has been calling for death to America. Okay, and I hope, I am sure you do, that for many years Iran has claimed that they are not pursuing a nuclear weapon. They have continually violated their promises. They have come afoul of the IAEI.
No, they're a horrible regime. They're a terrorist regime.
No, it's not
we
just
agree.
They're a horrible regime.
What's your point?
Can you honestly say that you don't believe that Iran has been and continues to pursue a nuclear bomb?
Yes.
Yeah, of course.
Yes.
Do you know anything about a Shia
what's the point you're making, Sumner?
My point is that I'm a lifelong Democrat. My family have been Democrats for 100 years. Okay, and I have voted in every election.
Okay, and your point is?
Every president, et cetera. And what I see with people like you, unfortunately, who are intelligent and
Sumner, what is your point? What is your point?
My point is that we have needed to try to lead the entire Western world has just closed their eyes at what the Iranian regime is doing. And also, if you understand anything about Shia Islam, they believe that the Mahdi is going to come back, their Jesus Christ. And
okay, Sumner, I hear. I guess I know where you're going. Number one, have we eliminated the nuclear threat after a month of bombing Iran?
No, we haven't.
Okay, number two, how do you feel about Israel's treatment of the Palestinians in Gaza? How do you feel about the displacement of 20% of the population in Lebanon? How do you feel about that?
I will tell you, if you will let me finish. Okay, what happened in Gaza started this last thing. First of all, Israel has been constantly under attack from Gaza by Hamas.
Sumner, you don't answer any questions. You don't make your point. Yes, we know about October 7th. It was one of the great atrocities of our time. And the atrocity that the Israeli leadership has perpetrated on innocent Palestinians, including women and children, is indefensible and will never be forgotten. Sumner, thanks for the call. 877-301-8970.
I would disagree with Sumner on one other point. I think we have been well aware of the danger from Iran for quite some time. And obviously, it's much more dangerous to Israel because of their location. And Israel's surrounded by countries who have historically wanted to get rid of them. So we get that. But
wait, don't leave that point. But while Israel didn't like it, most independent experts say the Obama deal
that when Barack Obama was president, he made an imperfect deal, and we all know it was an imperfect, but it was much better, if you ask me, than where we are now. I mean, and so as Trump ripped it up because he didn't like Barack Obama. He was mad because Barack Obama could walk down the stairs faster than he could and wore sunglasses or something better than he had. He had a thing about Obama. That's why he did it. It wasn't because he had something better. It's like when he says he's going to get rid of health care and then he doesn't have anything better. So he tears things up, ruins things. Eventually, as we've seen this year, the courts catch up. But by the time the courts catch up, he's ruined things with no replacement. And that's the big tragedy. We may never recover from what he's done in just in a year in office.
And by the way, most analysts say the 15-point plan that was submitted through Pakistan was essentially reworking of that which he rejected with the Obama plan. And by the way, if people share Sumner's point of view but can get to the point, it is fine to call and criticize us on our position. We're totally fine with that, but you got to make your point. Elaine in Jamestown, hi.
Hi, thanks for taking my call.
Pleasure.
I just wanted to point out that even though Iran is a despicable regime, the man who is ridiculing and calling Trump out has more guts than anybody in Congress. He's saying the things that should be said to Trump about what an idiot he is.
You mean the Iranian speaker that Marjorie mentioned?
Yeah.
Excuse me?
You mean the Speaker of the Iranian House?
Yes,
go ahead.
I do mean him.
Yeah.
He is saying the things that he should, or that Congress should be saying to Trump. That's what I'm trying to say. That
we got it. And by the way, many Democrats are saying it. A couple of Republicans are saying it. I don't even think they need to trash him. All they need to do is fulfill their constitutional obligation to have a debate about a war that we are leading. And Elaine, thanks for the call. You know one of my favorite things is when you hear Republicans, the way they weasel out of their responsibility is they say it's not a war.
Right.
And as a result, we don't have any obligation to...
Well, you know, the best thing I think we can hope at this point is that the military has done such an extensive job of attacking their, ballistic missile sites and all that kind of stuff that that maybe it will take them a longer time to re-up a nuclear weapon. But I have no idea. I don't know if that's true.
Well, and we also know that every expert says without boots on the ground, which very few people support, I think even Trump supporters very few support, that the likelihood of securing that almost 1,000 pounds of highly enriched uranium for nuclear bombs is out of our reach. John?
Here's a good one. From
John,
Woody,
1 second.
Woody,
Sorry.
the UPS driver, who is one of our frequent texters. What do I want to hear from Trump tonight? 2 words. I resign.
Well, that's what a woman said. John in Groveland, hi.
Yeah, hi. I resign is a good argument, I suppose. The fact of the matter is that the world has been waiting to see who was going to do something about Iran for many, many years. Mm-hmm. And I think, and I'm going to blame myself. I'm going to point the finger at myself at this. I think many of us have just assumed that at some point Israel would take the dramatic action. I think that has always been somewhere in the back of my mind. I don't know if it's true of other people, but I'm very, very, very glad we're doing this. I agree with you, however, Jim, that if we don't get the enriched uranium, the mission has not 100% succeeded. Now, I read this one, and you guys read a lot. You always remember just where you read things. that there's some thought that much of this material is buried. There is some thought that, no, they could deliver it to us. And I frankly just don't know the answers to all those questions. But I'm very glad that the ability of Iran to threaten not only the neighbors in the Middle East, but as we know now, threaten their neighbors throughout Europe. I'm very pleased with that.
But John, what makes you think that is going to last any more than 6 months? I mean, that's the issue, that they'll be able to they're doing a great job with the drones right now, and as you know, those aren't very expensive, or even up their ballistic missile capacity. I mean, I think the thing that we were mostly worried about, as we're stepping back from being policemen of the world, obviously, was their ability to get a nuclear weapon, and we're no closer to that. That's what this was supposed to be about. Right?
I don't know if that's true, Marjorie. Because I don't think I can state my point of view definitively at this point. I don't believe that you can state that point of view definitively at this point. Now, it may very well be that you and I talk in a month, and what you feel is 100% true. But I don't at this point.
Well, John, the reason you say that, and I tend to agree with you, is because nobody who is honest can say that we trust what Trump or Hegseth says about the war. So we don't know what the status is. I was reading an Axios story this morning, and they're talking about 11,000 hits, which is the number, and they go out of their way to say, according to the administration, because fact is an elusive thing with these people. John, that was a good call. Thank you for making it.
I think it's fair to say we've done a real number on their ballistic missile capacity, their Navy, and all that kind of stuff.
But again, he said, Hegseth yesterday said it was neutralized right before they dropped it.
Well, they said his nuclear capacity was obliterated back in the first attack. Exactly. So I found out that wasn't true. But to go back to the 2015 deal we had, internationally verifiable limits on the country's uranium enrichment program, while allowing the ballistic missile program to continue, which was not ideal. But again, I think our major concern was not ballistic missiles; it was a nuclear weapon. I think at least to me, that
was theoretically Trump's too. He just hasn't accomplished that.
Yeah. Okay. Coming up after this quick break, we're going to talk with, and by the way, thank you for your calls and texts. We're going to talk with Boston Globe business columnist Shirley Leung and her colleague John Chesto, also from the Globe, are here. We're going to talk about women's sports. We're going to talk about this tax issue on the ballot, about lowering the Massachusetts state income tax. I'm Marjorie Egan. He's Jim Browder. You're listening to BPR GBH NEPM live from the BPL and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Hey.
When you get ready with GBH's Morning Edition, you start the day informed.
All eyes are on the Supreme Court today.
Ready for all the elements.
We have mostly sunny skies for today, a little breezy as well.
And relaxed, because you're covered on the issues that matter most.
The latest headline news concerning the CDC.
Get ready with us. GBH's Morning Edition with Mark Hers. Weekdays starting at 6 on GBH 89.7. And streaming on the GBH News app.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you.
And Brightbound. It's never too early to start thinking about what comes next, and Brightbound helps students from middle school through high school discover rewarding careers. Learn more at BRITEbound.org. And Framingham State University, where students learn to examine evidence and challenge assumptions. In a world of noise, truth takes discipline. Framingham State University. Live to the truth. Learn more at framingham.edu.
Welcome back to BPR and GBH and NEPM. Marjorie Egan and Jim Browder live from the library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Back here Friday, it's live music with the former U.S. poet laureate, Robert Pinsky. Jill Abramson, former editor of the New York Times, will join us for Press Play. And the mayor is with us April 28th, noon to 1. We're waiting on the governor and the attorney general for their April dates. And I repeat, crowd, thank you all for coming. Very sparse crowd today.
I know. No one loves us anymore, Jim.
Well, you are welcome here today and, of course, Friday. We're joined now by Boston Globe business columnist Shirley Leung and John Chesto. Together, they're writing the brand new Power Play newsletter. They'll tell us about it in a second. Shirley's also host of the Same War podcast, available wherever you get your podcast. Congratulations and hello, John and Shirley. How are you both?
We should hold up our little Press Play podcast, which Oh,
our
there we
handbills.
go. There we go. Isn't that nice?
That is good.
We're using it as a fan.
I know,
now.
fan. It's so
very
hot in here. What are you going to do when it's 90 degrees outside?
I don't
It's
know.
not even 70.
Well, thank you for that, Shirley. Good to see you too. Appreciate it.
So tell us about this Power Play. You know the bylines, you know our scoops. Now we're joining forces. What's going on?
So we are launching a newsletter together. John and I have been covering the business beat for decades.
We figured out it was decades.
Decades, plural.
In Boston.
And so we're still I'm gonna still do my column, and you're gonna still do your bold types.
Yeah.
But we're gonna join forces twice a week, every Tuesday and Friday.
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, and we'll lift the lid on business and power in Massachusetts.
And what do we subscribe? You have to subscribe to this thing, or what do you do?
Yes, just like you log on. It's Boston Globe.
It's globe.com slash power play.
Slash power play. Or you can do the little QR code on your
if
phone.
you're here in the studio.
Let me tell you something though. I want to be kind, but Marjorie and I both subscribed to the soup newsletter.
Oh,
and
yeah?
we never got a soup recipe.
2 years in a row.
And we actually spoke to the editor of the soup department on the phone here on the radio. So if we subscribe, we're going to get this thing. John, look at me when I'm telling you. Yes.
You
promise?
You can reach out to me and I'll
we'll
hand deliver
personally
it.
give you one. So if you are a current Globe subscriber, sign up for it and you get it as part of your subscription.
That's great.
If you do not subscribe to the Globe, you'll have to subscribe to the Globe in order to read this newsletter, and that's a little bit different from the other newsletters that we have at the Globe.
Yeah, Jim and I were overly involved in the Soup Club membership. We were both devastated when we somehow were not included in the exclusive group of soup makers. So anyway,
wait, before you go,
what?
I want to say there is a listener and a reader. I'm only going to give her first name, Victoria, who wrote, a GBH member and listener from Providence, as well as a Globe subscriber. I always tune up my attention when Shirley appears as a guest or fill-in host on BPR. I hope this new initiative will not mean she has to cut back on either of those activities, as the recently truncated BPR format already limits available airtime for guests, to my dismay. So you want to respond to that, Shirley?
I know I have a fan, and so we just launched. We just invited subscribers yesterday to sign up for our newsletter, and we've gotten
we're already getting feedback.
We're getting feedback, and one of the first three was about my appearance on GBH.
All of our listeners are complainers. So
that's right. So Victoria, the answer is I will not cut back on my appearances on GBH. I will continue to do them, and hopefully I'll be able to talk about some of the newsletter, what we'll be writing in the newsletter. So what's different about this newsletter is it's all scoops. A lot of other newsletters in town, they have a lead news item and then they'll link to a lot of different things. But we want to design it so it's incredibly all scoops.
The pressure's on. Before we leave this topic,
Yeah.
you two do as much to set the agenda discussion in this city, frankly, as virtually any journalist in
that's
town.
kind of you to say.
So I'm really excited about it. John, you wrote about one of my favorite topics. There's a ballot question that is likely to be before voters in November that would cut somewhere in the neighborhood of $5 billion, which doesn't mean much, $5 billion out of a $60 billion budget, give or take. Tell people what it does and who are the players in this thing.
Yeah, so there's some business groups that have filed it. It's a response, in a large extent, to the millionaire's tax that voters approved now almost 4 years ago on high earners. And so they're trying to lower the tax. They're going after the income tax, but they want to lower the income tax for everyone from 5% right now is the standard rate to 4%, and that's a 20% reduction, obviously. And if you do the math, it's about $5 billion out of the $26 billion we collect in income tax. So there's definitely the unions are very concerned, and they're out there. They were out there protesting on Monday. And what I wrote about this week is that their business community is actually quite divided, and they're I would say gradually emerging opponents to this income tax cut, even though it started with some business groups. We're seeing more and more business leaders come out against it for fear of what it will do to the state budget.
Well, you know what I wonder about, too? I mean, every time I open up the Globe now, there's another story, front page of the Globe on Saturday, about Lexington, which is an affluent community. We're having to cut all these positions, and all around the state. Lexington is not unique with healthcare costs, and the cities and towns being devastated already. So I don't know if this is going to work.
Well, I mean, you're getting at also another issue that's playing out in the State House, in that the Mass Municipal Association, which represents cities and towns, is trying to figure out a way to tinker with what we all know as Prop 2.5, that puts sort of a limit on without going to the referendum on how much you can increase locally, because almost every city and town, I live in Newton, and they just announced more cuts to the Newton School District a few days ago. I mean, it's happening almost everywhere now, because significantly. So there will be some lobbying at the State House. How successful Prop 2.5 is beloved, and I don't know if there's appetite to touch it this year, but we'll certainly hear ways to maybe, people will be proposing ways to tweak it, because cities and towns are really getting constrained, if not hammered, by this.
By the way, Mayor Wu stood there several months ago and said, I was shocked when she said that Prop 2.5 should be repealed by the legislature. She backed off a little bit the next time she was here. Shirley, almost every I used to be in the tax reform business, which is how I met Marjorie when she obliterated me in a column she wrote for
well deserved. Made fun of his whale pants, his Volvo.
Almost every bit responsible business leader. I mean, with all due respect, and I would be careful. The High Tech Council, one of the groups behind this, has been for cutting taxes since
the 80s.
That was their reason, and they were the primary funder, supporter of Citizens for Limited Taxation. It was led by the brilliant Barbara Anderson, who has died. She's no longer with us. The Pioneer Institute is a small government kind of thing. Every article I've ever read through the years about business is taxes matter as long as they're predictable. What matters more is the quality of services, so you can have a workforce that wants to live there, that's affordable, et cetera, et cetera. That matters more, what government provides, than their income tax, doesn't it, or does it?
And that's what we're seeing play out, right now. And we'll see that throughout April, this month. I think John's right. We're going to start to see more business groups come out against this. I mean, I've talked about this last time I was on. I'm a little worried it might be too little too late. I wonder if the genie's out of the bottle. I mean, you get a voter into the voting booth, right? And, they're faced with gas prices over $4.
Yeah.
Inflation has been through the roof. They can't pay their bills. And if the question is simply, do you want your income taxes to be lower? What are they going to do? They're probably going to check yes.
Well, based on experience, and I think most people who've done ballot stuff would agree. The most recent poll, 60% said they'd vote yes for this, which is really early on. This is going to be a money campaign, in my estimation.
You're right.
If one side, the history in this state is, if one, with very few exceptions, if one side dramatically outspends the other side, the higher spending group, with some exceptions, wins. And the question is, does the responsible business community join with some of these unions to fund the campaign when there's so many ballot questions and others that concern them too?
And my sense is that the unions are kind of get behind a couple horses, or they're going to pick their fights. And I think income tax is at the top of their list to fight this income tax cut ballot initiative.
And again, it's still not 100% on the ballot. They have to collect a few more signatures, but we'll stay on top of this, as I'm sure John and Shirley will too, as it makes its way to the ballot.
So, Shirley, you wrote a piece about this multi-billion-dollar development project in Revere and why it went to Revere instead of Boston. What did you say?
So this is about the redevelopment of the Suffolk Downs horse track, and it's about 150 some acres, 161 acres, and half of it is on the Boston side and half of it is on Revere. And what's really stark, when you go out to the site, the only part of the site where there's development that has started is on the Revere site. There's a apartment complex, and then when I went out there, they've started the second phase. There's bulldozers and pile drivers, so they're getting ready. And it just really struck me how this one project, right, straddles Boston and Revere, but only one side is moving forward, and a lot of it is because of the mayors, the previous mayor and the current mayor, Mayor Keefe, decided to really work with developers, give tax breaks, even I think to really make this project, this project Suffolk Downs, to restart it back in December, it required a $15 million tax break from Revere, and so it was a story about why this eventually will be a $10 billion project. Why it's only moving forward on one side.
But the issue, the reason we wanted to talk about this, beyond the fact that you wrote about it, John, I mean that Shirley did, is this the age-old debate about what Mayor Wu, when we were discussing with her the P3 project in Roxbury, after we had, I think, Reverend Brown and Amari Paris Jeffries on, she said, I'm not going to get involved in a race to the bottom, which is what she was talking about when you cut taxes, special deals, that sort of thing. The mayor of Revere said it's not a red carpet, whatever it is. I mean, that's the eternal debate about what do you do to lure businesses and how much are you willing to bend to get them there. There's no answer, right?
Well, I think to some extent you have to look at the economic climate. I mean, right now, there's very little construction happening in Boston of any size because of larger macroeconomic factors as well as some local policies. And, yes, it's a balance. And I think there's a case to be made that in a time like this where it's the, low interest rates or investors' interests aren't sweeping in getting projects going. Maybe the city has to do a little more. And, the mayor would say that she has looked into these things, but clearly not enough. Yes, Mayor Wu has looked into, realizes this. Her aides realize this, but it's been a tough call because of her reservations about like.
And by the way, the interesting thing is the developer here is Tom O'Brien, who for a minute and a half almost ran for mayor. That's as we learned from Shirley Leung the other day, let's put it this way, the Mayor Wu has a long memory. Is that a fair way?
Yes.
Is she talking to you after that piece you did the other day?
Pardon me?
Is she speaking to you?
Will she ever speak with you?
What did you write the other day, Shirley?
I wrote a story about Mayor Wu and how, like other mayors, she likes to hold political grudges. Mm-hmm. And I last month was March Madness, and I called it March Madness Boston style. Who's next to find themselves on Michelle Wu's political grudge list? And it really started with we've been thinking about this for a while, but the editorial board of the Globe wrote a piece about the Emerald Necklace Conservancy and how they have this annual fundraiser with like women in beautiful hats in the park, and they raise money for to take care of the trees and a bunch of public parks and. But after 21 years, the city decided not to give them a permit to hold their party in the park. And it's because the Conservancy has sued the city of Boston over White Stadium in Franklin Park. And apparently the mayor did not like that.
Well, I mean, the administration says that's not the reason. They said they should have never had a permit to begin with. But I thought, who did you quote who said,
Joyce.
When Menino did it, it was fine. She's a guy. When a woman does it,
it's powerful.
Don Joyce. Right. She worked for the mayor. She was the spokesperson.
If anybody crossed Menino, I mean, as you mentioned, Sam
Don Shafaro.
Where is
he?
Not in Boston.
Yeah, Sam Yoon is not in Boston.
That's
anymore.
right.
For mayor, and he had to leave town.
He had to leave town to get a job.
And so Dodd said that when a man does it, it's powerful. When a woman does it, it's a political grudge. And so I mean, the way I take it, she's the mayor. The mayor's entitled. When you are the mayor, and when you win by so many, when you trounced, her only challenger last year, she does deserve the opportunity to hold grudges.
Trounced her only challenger, who had two issues in the campaign: bike lanes and White Stadium. And now his family has endorsed the building of White Stadium. I mean, is that an incredible story?
That was a bit of a surprise, seeing the Kraft Group filing with the Supreme Judicial Court saying, "Let's go forward with White Stadium." Yeah,
and it's fair to say that.
Thing. It's one thing for Tom Menino, Mr. Tough Guy from Hyde Park, to go after somebody else, for a young mother of 3 young children, Asian woman, tiny little bit of a thing physically. She's not a big person.
Tiny little bit.
Well, she is. She's a little bit of a thing. I think it gets under people's skin. I think tough guys don't like it.
Do you notice what Shirley hasn't answered? I asked her twice if Mayor Wu has spoken to her.
Is she speaking to you ever again?
Let's try a third time. Is she speaking to you?
Speaking. We're in communication.
Good.
So, but you should ask her next time that she's on.
Through the Pakistanians, actually, the same as Donald Trump is
Shirley,
doing.
before you go, I'm a big fan of your podcast. You got a good one. I love your interview with the woman that was talking about going to the soccer game with her little daughter.
Yes, this is the New Yorker sports writer columnist who lives around here.
Yeah.
And so we all went to the first Boston Legacy football game. Football,
great.
soccer. You know, it's called football, I guess, because. Well, football,
Whatever,
soccer.
15 seconds.
Women's soccer. It was great. It was such a fun time, and it's so exciting to have a women's soccer team in Boston finally here.
So
John,
thumbs up on women's sports.
Thumbs up.
When is the first newsletter dropping?
Well, that's a good question.
We don't know.
Well,
April.
maybe you should know.
Soon.
Next few weeks.
Okay,
Next
good.
few weeks.
Congratulations.
That's the
We're looking
Thank
forward
you
to
very
it,
much.
actually.
A lot of scoops. Big pressure.
Powerplay.
Okay.
Globe.com/powerplay.
That's right. We've been speaking with John Chesto, who used to sit next to me at the Boston Herald.
I didn't know that.
Years ago, yes.
Back in the old days.
Yeah, back in the olden days, I know. And Shirley Leung, business columnist at the Boston Globe, always tell him not to look forward to his pension because it's not going to be what he hoped for. Okay, together they do the power
You know
play.
who's on the next time
newsletter.
Shirley's on the show?
Juliette Kayyem is
Mayor
next.
Wu.
Mayor Wu. Oh, good. Okay. Juliette Kayyem is next. You're listening to BPR and GBH at any PM.
I'm Jared Bowen. Coming up on The Culture Show, Robert Pinsky joins us to kick off National Poetry Month. Over decades of writing, teaching, and translating, the three-time U.S. Poet Laureate has insisted that poetry be spoken and shared. From jazz collaborations to the Favorite Poem Project, he has spent a career bringing poems off the page and into public conversation. That and more on The Culture Show today at 2 on GBH 89.7.
Support for GBH comes from you.
And Mass General Brigham Health Plan, providing helpful digital tools, world-class providers, and coverage that help you live in the moment. More at massgeneralbrighamhealthplan.org.
And Bernadine Sung Megasin at Dream Mega International Realty, dedicated to helping buyers and sellers across Greater Boston, offering market insight and guidance through each step of the process. More at homesbybernadine.com.
Are we back? We're discussing a personal matter here. We're back, right? Okay. Welcome back to BPR and GBH and NEPM. Marjorie Egan and Jim Browdy. Very unprofessional, Jim.
Yep.
Live from the library, streaming youtube.com/GBH News. Friday, Robert Pinsky is our Live Music Friday. He also happens to be a former U.S. Poet Laureate. Jill Abramson, former editor of the New York Times, will join us too. We're joined now at the library desk by national security expert Juliette Kayyem, former Assistant Secretary for Homeland Security under Barack Obama, faculty chair of the Homeland Security Program at the Kennedy School of Government, and CNN senior national security analyst. Hello, Juliette.
Hello, everyone.
Hello
Thanks for
there.
coming out in this, the weather. I'm hot now.
It is hot.
I don't know
We're
what
all
to do.
hot.
And then Peter from across the street is the great guy who parks our cars so we can have a quick exit. Said it's going to be 30-something tomorrow.
It
Oh,
is.
it is?
Anyway, okay.
So it's a little erratic.
Thanks for the weather
So
report.
we've spent the first 20 minutes talking with listeners about this, but so give us a brief assessment. What about the president's speech tonight? What will he say? What should he say?
I don't think we know. I mean, this is I don't know. It's not. It may not be checkers. It's definitely not chess. But it's It's 18-dimensional chess because the man doesn't either. He knows exactly what he's doing, or he has no idea what he's doing. But you cannot follow the narrative coming out of the White House yet. Now that may be because he's. We're going to war. I mean, that may be all of this stuff is just BS, and then he's going to say tonight, I snookered everyone.
The Marines are landing.
And the Marines are landing or whatever. This, I will say, I thought that there's no way he's doing this, but the Europeans now think that this is the plan. If you read what the Europeans...
What do they think?
They think that we're going to war, and they they basically a lot of the European leaders, a lot of the economists now, a lot of the people who follow global economy, they're like, we feel like public health people in February of 2020. We're seeing what's happening or not going to happen, and everyone needs to get ready. You already have rationing in various countries. You have rules about when people can drive, electricity. You have mayors coming out saying everyone should get into public transportation. They are looking at these numbers. So that's one scenario. The other is that Trump has convinced everyone he's going to say something interesting. He can't keep on script. And by the end of it, we're talking about, his ballroom. It could be that he's just mad that he got stopped on being able to build the ballroom. But I have not seen any hint of what this is going to be, because his advisors, the media he's calling, none of them know anything. And if I hear another reporter say, Trump just called me and said this, I was like,
well,
do
the
your
third
job.
option you left out is the one that I hope I'm not embarrassed about tomorrow morning, which is, rather than saying ground troops are going in and we're expanding the war because we haven't achieved all our goals, I think he's going to say, declare total victory. Mission accomplished.
Here's the
regime change,
right.
Even though there isn't. They have no nuclear capacity, even though they do.
Right.
The Strait of Hormuz is Europe's problem, not ours. And the major beyond, so who knows? And
okay, but let me just raise something about that, because I have thought that too. I think that was doable 2 weeks ago. But what we talk about the Strait of Hormuz incorrectly, not we, as a collective, because we talk about it being open or closed. I want you to, that's not true. It is now tiered. And that tiering is being led by Iran. So they have their allies, and their allies, Russia, others, will get their boats through. They then have the people who can pay a cost. That is going to be the vast majority of shipping and nations that will have to pay, because that's why we don't have a coalition, because they know we don't have a coalition because they don't know why we're fighting the war. But the Europeans are looking at this and saying, we will pay the price for additional tiering that's going to happen by Iran. And then there's going to be countries that can't get through. And there's only two, United States and Israel. That's how this ends, because Iran has a voice. And it didn't play this game, just to remind everyone, it did not play this card until without a purpose of going to war, without allies, without even a darn address to the nation, which we're still waiting for, but we're going to get tonight, apparently. Trump went to war.
So
and that's how I think it ends.
One of the other horrible fallouts from this pathetic endeavor by Trump and Hegseth, to me, is he's hinting as of last night, which he has in the past, but I thought more explicitly, because the Europeans, who he never consulted before the war, this excursion, as he calls it. Can you not see him in the next week saying we're pulling out of NATO, which to me would be just an abomination?
But I think NATO is prepared. It is an abomination, and I'll let my colleagues like Nick Burns wax on a lot better than I can, certainly, about NATO. But I have to say that disruption is essentially an all but name now already. That I don't think the NATO countries view the United States a reliable partner if Article 5 was invoked. So if, let's say, a member of NATO, Ukraine was not, was in fact attacked, I don't think the NATO is planning for the United States. And you and I have talked about this, just to remind everyone, the only time that Article 5, which is an attack on one of us, is an attack on all of us, has been invoked, was when the other nations went to war for us after 9/11. Only time. So I think it would be horrible, but I do think it's part of the whatever this looks like after 2028, and whether he continues to be as wildly unpopular as he is now. The most unpopular president since polling began, It's not a rebuilding; it's a sort of reconception, I think.
You know, one thing you said about the Strait of Hormuz, though, if the Europeans are paying and the Americans,
they're still to pay. I think that's it's Iran's play.
Okay.
It's their play.
But then, so the strait will be mostly open, so that should solve most of the global problem. And according to Donald Trump, we don't even need don't get much for oil through. So that would solve the Strait of Hormuz problem, which is a good thing for the global oil markets.
Absolutely.
So
except remember this.
What?
Because
it's a good thing for us too.
No, but because we put Iran in a position of which we had no stated reason for going to war. It had almost no ties to the nuclear issue, at least from what I can tell, and they are in a fight for their life, which they never felt before in our other excursions. We killed one of their military leaders. We went after the nuclear facilities, but we said the words regime change, right? So they're in a fight for their life. They are going to play this card every single day. And what you want in supply chain and in global supply chain management, whether it's the stuff I deal with, the Walmarts of the world or oil and gas or whatever, is you want consistency.
Okay, so the uncertainty of the oil market will be okay, I got it.
Before we leave this, Tom Friedman said the solution is simple. They agreed to disgorge their 950 pounds of highly enriched uranium, in return for which we say we give up on regime change and all the other hostilities end. Is that realistic?
No.
Okay.
Why would they give up on their nukes? That's what I don't get.
What do you mean we give up on regime change? We gave up on regime change. Yeah. We did it. And look what happened. So what are we giving up?
There's a fairly great likelihood you're going to be dead if this war continues. There may be more to replace you, but most people don't want to be dead.
They have
but do you want to be dead if you're...
They have a whole different thing about death, though. That's what I keep talking about.
It's not.
When you die over there, you become a martyr. Everybody's going to paradise. I mean, it's a different way of looking at death, I think, than we have in the United States.
No, it's not. It's a different way of thinking about your agreement with your relationship to the state. So, in other words, they view a president comes and goes. They view the regime as permanent, so that who's ever the head of it at any given time is less relevant than that you're having consistency of the regime, and that it's not the Shah. So this is. I mean, it's just I don't even get the Tom Friedman scenario, unless the Iranians, his idea that we have regime change still in our back pocket is ridiculous.
That's a good point.
It is ridiculous.
Okay. So
I'm going to repeat what I said at the beginning when you had all these people saying rah rah, and I was going crazy, including like everywhere that you would look on TV. I was like, you all think that this is going to be one in the air. It's going to be decided in the waters. And everyone who knew how supply chain, oil, distribution of goods and services happens knew that. And the White House and everyone who likes to see the military bomb nations with no strategy was wrong.
Okay, let's go. We've talked a lot, obviously, about ICE overreach. This one really put me over the top. That they have at Parris Island, South Carolina, where Marines train, unless they train in California, they're at Parris Island. They're going to have ICE agents out there to apprehend the families of the Marines who are about to graduate.
Yeah. This one was like, I sent it over. I was like, this one I'm not getting. Because, first of all, it's not going to be a big group of people.
No,
right?
But still.
So I have a worry about what this is about for a variety of reasons. It's just disgusting. I think Hegseth's reconfiguration of the leadership of the military is starting to take hold. And because something like that does not happen without the head of the base wanting that to happen. In other words, it's sort of inconceivable to me that this is without military support, if not idea. where they're going to be doing the graduation. So I think that these are all these like crazy guys that Hegseth is putting in that like see God in every bomb. I think I worry that that's a little bit about what's going on. That you're having the Pentagon and ICE align in a way that you saw TSA and ICE. Why are you looking at me that way?
Well, it just seems like it's another political. I think generally speaking, most Americans think like that guy who was deported early on, who had three sons who were Marines. I think generally speaking, Americans think if you volunteer to die for your country, you get a little bit more of a pass than the average Joe or Jane. Yeah. And Marines are going in to volunteer to die for their country. Do we want to punish their sisters and brothers and spouses?
It's absolutely we're going to send you to a war that we have not quite defined what its purpose is, but your parents can't come wish you well. I mean, it's just. But this is both the pettiness. It's the lack of return on investment, because it's like, even if they do this, how many people could they actually get? So it's just to terrorize different groups. But I also think that I think it shows such a spiraling of this administration right now, in terms of trying to grasp something that they can hold on to as they see what the Iran war is doing to that. So I do think, look, I heard that Trump talk about the ballroom. Like, I mean, this is the spiraling that's going on. They're trying to hold on to something. We should be talking about nothing but the war. But they want you to be talking about this.
Well, we are going to talk about something else here besides the war.
Well, it is Homeland Security related.
Yeah, it is Homeland Security related. I mean,
rather low
the
rent.
Poor husband of Kristin Leung.
Oh, I didn't even know.
Apparently was.
I'm going to be sensitive. I'm going to be sensitive about him.
Well, let's say what happened first.
Yeah, sorry.
Well, he's been on this website that if people that have fetishes about enormous breasts, apparently, and he himself has been dressing up, putting balloons under his T-shirt to look like he has enormous breasts, and he's exchanging. These are women that some of them who were involved in the pornography industry looking for money from him. I mean, the basic thing, it is a blackmailable kind of thing because it's so embarrassing. Now it has been found out. The Daily Mail published this, and it's, needless to say, ricocheting all across the country. Yeah.
I didn't even hear about it, and then I got a call from a reporter, and these are moments when you say no comment. I mean, part of it is because I have a lot of anger towards her and towards the way she treated human beings. And her lack of empathy. So I'm going to try to show a little bit of that right now.
His neighbors did, by the way. The New York Times did a long story about him.
By the way, that story
where these neighbors, these farmers, and these guys that knew him from his insurance company, they said, he's a great guy. He's a great guy. They felt sad.
Yeah. And I think we have to, I am in the arena. I am ready to fight for my country. But I do think when situations like this happen to someone who obviously has a lot going on in terms of his own identity, who he is, may explain why he let his wife sort of flaunt an affair with Corey Lewandowski for a long period of time. I'm sorry, an alleged affair that everyone, but they were together all the time. I think I'm going to show him that empathy. I will not show her that empathy.
Well,
there is apparently federal.
I am sympathetic. I don't want to trash him. He has his issues. Let him deal with that. I have to say, I am reveling in her misery.
Oh, I am too.
And because when you weigh the misery that her sadism caused thousands and thousands of people next to this little speck that is embarrassing for her, she needs about 10,000 more of these today. To balance the equation.
I saw an old picture of her when she flew down to, was it Colombia or?
Oh yeah,
El Salvador.
El Salvador,
in
in front of like a torture,
with a Rolex watch.
Look, and also, I mean, I just, for me, because this is my space, like March 2026 was like a good month. I mean, because there also is. And this shows that the Trump people do think she's damaged goods. The Trump people have authorized investigations of all of these contracts that clearly went to Corey Lewandowski
and her former staff person's husband,
$100 million
who had no
contracts.
Experience.
Well, the other issue is how closely did they vet her for this job? I mean, and the opportunity to blackmail her because of this side life of her husband.
That's right.
I mean, that's the other issue.
We know they vetted Hegseth because they said we need a woman abuser as Secretary of Defense.
Yeah.
We got him right here, and he's a drunk too.
Yeah.
let's promote him. In any case,
Juliette Kayyem, thank you very much.
I'll see you in 2 weeks.
Juliette is former Assistant Secretary for Homeland Security under President Barack Obama, Faculty Chair of the Homeland Security Program at Harvard's Kennedy School of Government, CNN Senior National Security Expert. Thank you again, Juliette. We're saying goodbye to you folks up on NEPM, but thank you very much for tuning in. You can tune in to the Fabulous 413 at 3 o'clock this afternoon. We're going to keep going here in Boston after this quick break. Dan Primack, business editor of Axios, joins us to talk through how much this war is costing us, rising gas prices, Pentagon's AI push, etc. I'm Marjorie Egan. He's Jim Browder. You're listening to BPR, GBH, and NEPM, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
GBH is committed to lifelong learning, and the Beacon Circle shares that commitment with gifts of $2,400 or more. It's one big way to help keep our community informed and connected. Learn more at gbh.org/Beacon Circle.
Funding for our programs comes from you.
And Biogen. For nearly 50 years, Biogen has been committed to advancing biotechnology innovations to develop new medicines for people with hard-to-treat diseases. Biogen, making breakthroughs happen. Biogen.com. And Central Square Theatre, presenting Breaking the Code, the story of British mathematician Alan Turing, who broke the Nazis' Enigma code only to be persecuted by his own government for his sexuality. Opens April 2nd. CentralSquareTheatre.org.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you?
Welcome back to BPR on 89.7 GBH. Jim Browdy and Marjorie Egan. We are broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. We want to update on Friday. We're going to be here by the former poet laureate of the United States, Robert Pinsky, who's also going to do poems with music. And our Press Play segment is going to star the former editor of the New York Times, Jill Abramson. One more thing, on the 28th of April, Misrule will be with us here at the library from noon to 1. Hello again, Jim.
And we're in the midst of picking dates, or selecting dates, or agreeing to dates with the Governor and Attorney General. We're joined now by Dan Primack. Dan is the business editor at Axios and author of the daily Axios Pro Rata newsletter. Dan, it's good to see you.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here.
So we don't know what the president's going to say tonight. A lot of people are guessing he's going to say we're cutting bait and getting out. If that's what he says, what does this mean about gas prices, given that the Strait of Hormuz is still not opened up?
Probably not all that much, given the Strait of Hormuz. Right. I mean, what he says about that will be more important for gas prices. And also, it's worth noting, gas prices, it's a long-term thing, right? Even if he announced tonight, Strait of Hormuz is open, everybody can flow through. It's not like gas goes to $2 tomorrow. It takes a while for this to work through the system, just like it's been. You keep hearing people talk about $200 oil, and we're nowhere close to that yet. But people talk about it because it takes a long time to build up, and it takes a while to build back down.
And when he keeps saying it doesn't really matter because we don't get we have our own oil, we have plenty of oil. Explain that global market thing that I keep hearing.
Yeah, it is a global market. The price of oil is set at a global amount. It's a global price. So whether that oil is coming from Iran or it's coming from Dallas, it's a global price. And by the way, it's not just oil. That's true of all sorts of commodities. It's true for coffee. It's the reason why coffee prices have been going up, even though we get very little coffee out of that region either. But people do in other parts of the world, including Southeast Asia.
So I want to get back the other end of the spectrum, because I am a belief that he's going to declare victory tonight. Juliette was suggesting that she thinks, so a lot of people she respects suggest he's realizes if he's going to put boots on the ground, he actually has to speak to the American people before. Let's get to that in a second. I worry that with all these prices being elevated because of a variety of things, tariffs, war, etc., groceries, fuel oil, we know that jet fuel has gone up more than 100%, that those who charge those prices are aware of the psychology of price increases, which is if $2 goes to $4, you don't really need to go back to $2 after everything is ended to make people happy. If you go to $2.50, it's still a huge cut from the high point. My point, which I should have just gotten to, isn't price gouging potentially a huge problem down the line here?
It is. I mean, not so much with gas at the pump, right? Because that does go way up, it goes way down, and that is a little bit more responsive to what's happening in the world. But grocery is a good example. I mean, one of the reasons why this war is causing grocery prices to go up more than they already have been is the fertilizer issue.
Yeah.
We actually do get a lot of fertilizer from the Middle East.
We just learned that yesterday,
that goes through the Strait of Hormuz. Again, it's a lag, right? It's not impacting, the crops that you're getting at the supermarket today, but that's going to be a real problem.
Okay, so if the first scenario that Juliette Kayyem described a minute ago, that I just described, that his people say, if you can't not talk to the American people if you're going to expand this war, let's assume that is the announcement tonight, an expansion, boots on the ground, we're going to take that island, we're going to go seize the 950 pounds of enriched uranium. What does that do to all these prices?
Well, for starters, it crushes the stock market, which has gone up over the last couple of days because they believe not necessarily about tonight, but they believe it's declare victory and get out. That's what the market's kind of been saying for 2 days. For oil prices, it's a little tricky. On the one hand, you'd say, well, they're going to spike in the short, immediately spike, certainly, but what we've been told about a month ago when this war started was, well, we're about a month away from being able to have naval ships actually in the Strait of Hormuz and protecting it. Now, we don't really know where those ships are. We don't know if those plans really exist or where they are. He could say, and I don't know that he will, he could say, in 2 or 3 days, we're going to have the U.S. Navy sitting in the Strait of Hormuz, and these tankers are going to start going again. If he says that, then that's a huge boon for oil prices.
Can I ask one more thing about the stock market? When you talk to the people inside there who you report on and know, one of the incredible things to me is, even though this is arguably the least honest human being who has ever been in the White House, if he even gives an indication we're winding down, despite the fact that, as we said at the top, everything is 2 weeks, as we know. Just that, and knowing his history of deceit, as you say, 1,100 points yesterday, 450, I just looked so far today. Is that putting hope above reality?
It is, and there's this other group of people, of course, the so-called taco trade, the Trump always chickens out trade, who've been betting against it. Anytime, the market goes up because they think Trump's going to do something that helps the market, they bet against it. But there's fewer of those people.
Okay.
Well, speaking of taco trading and people, trying to play the market, there's been a lot of reporting about supposed insider trading, that people knowing in advance something's going to come out of the White House, and then betting on military stock. Hegseth was accused of, and he said it wasn't true, but that his broker was trying to get involved with this. So what's going on there?
Yeah, look, there have been a lot of very problematic trades before, very big things the administration has done, and not just military, but the biggest example were these trades that came, they were really, I think, either on Polymarket or Kalshi. I think on Polymarket right before the original bombs dropped in Iran a month or so ago. There's insider trading going on. The reality, however, is, and there's kind of two kinds of insider trading. There's insider trading that is regulated by the SEC, the Securities and Exchange Commission, that's stocks, bonds, and then there's insider trading that's related to commodities, whether that be oil, and that's the CFTC, and they're also the ones who theoretically oversee the prediction markets, Kalshi, and coming soon to the U.S. Polymarket. There's basically no enforcement right now. The chief of enforcement at the SEC was basically booted recently. There doesn't seem to be much enforcement staff there. I believe in the most recent fiscal year, there were fewer SEC enforcement actions brought than in any year in the past decade or something like that, including the first Trump administration. There's basically no one guarding the henhouse right now.
Are any of these behaviors crimes?
Yes, they would be crimes. Yeah, you are, just like if you are the CEO of a company, you're not allowed to buy or sell your shares because you're about to announce something good or bad, and nor could your spouse or nor could your neighbor if you told them. Same thing applies here.
Can I ask you one more question about illegality? Is we had this discussion in vis-a-vis Minneapolis. Can local prosecutors do what they're paid to do without any sharing of evidence by the federal government, and they're at least attempting to do it? That county prosecutor, whatever, I can't remember her name, from the county that Minneapolis is in, can prosecutors outside the regulatory agencies act here?
Yes.
Even if they can?
They can. It's tricky. I mean, although usually it's federal. Usually, for example, the Southern District in New York is often the one that does it. They can bring investor. It would be different. It wouldn't be securities fraud charges. It would be investor fraud charges, and the argument would be, or whatever you call people who bet on prediction markets, fraud charges. Yeah. It would basically be saying, you defrauded those people, the people who are on the other side of the trade because you knew something they didn't. They theoretically could, although, again, it's extraordinarily rare because the SEC has all these tools. It's very difficult. For example, if you or I buy stock, the average person, the average prosecutor can't figure that out, unless somebody's leaked it to them. The SEC, though, has tools that they're allowed to.
One last related thing, which we asked in the context of the crackdown on civil rights in this country. Crackdown is a euphemism compared to what they actually did. If you were the chief advisor to the Democrats when they take over, assuming they take over the House in January, in the world that you cover, what are the first things you'd hold oversight hearings about?
The first thing would be I'd want to find out what happened last month at the FTC, which is the Federal Trade Commission, vis-a-vis antitrust. And I know this is a little bit in the weeds, but there have been a couple very big mergers that have been approved recently, or not blocked is the better way to put it. And the head of the antitrust enforcement unit was fired. She resigned, but she was basically fired.
Because they wouldn't let her do her job, right?
Basically, all of her deputies have basically been fired. In fact, there's really nobody left there who's not a line prosecutor. And these are people who were appointed by Trump. They're all gone, and they haven't even really been replaced. And right now, if you are a big company, it is not only open season to do a merger because no one's going to stop you. If you cozy up, it appears that if you cozy up to the administration, specifically hire the right lobbyists, for example, there's this guy named Mike Davis, who's a big MAGA guy, who kind of has gone over the FTC's head to get his deals done, including one involving HPE, including Live Nation, the big Live Nation case. And then there's this other lobbying firm with Kellyanne Conway, also Hillary Rosen, a Democrat, so they're on both sides. But it's a really big deal that there's really nobody enforcing antitrust law anymore. And again, it's not that you've got an antitrust staff that's thought, you know what, these aren't worth prosecuting. They've just been fired when they've tried to.
Explain in a sentence why the average person cares about antitrust laws and enforcement.
Because the reason for antitrust laws is basically protect consumers in terms of prices. Is primarily what it is. It prevents, or it's at least intended to prevent, monopolies, either in industries big and small. With Live Nation, the argument was it wasn't
the ticket people.
It wasn't about a merger. It was basically arguing that Live Nation controls the venues, they control the ticketing process. Thus, nobody can really have a concert at any significant venue without using Ticketmaster, which Live Nation owns.
Yeah, I mean, it's really hard to go to any kind of concert anymore.
And that one was remarkable because from a political standpoint, it's nonpartisan. I mean, let's face it, everybody hates Ticketmaster. Everybody hates Live Nation. Everybody does.
Yeah.
And so we kind of looked at that. I looked at it and thought, well, this is the one they're not going to screw with. They're going to go through this because it's a big political win for Trump if he can break that up. But no. We're
talking to Dan Primack, business editor of Axios. One last thing on this antitrust thing. Is this a Trump thing? I mean, if there's another president in office, could we deal with some of this stuff more effectively?
Yeah, of course you could. I mean, and to be honest, Trump did in his first term. He was actually pretty effective when it came to antitrust enforcement in his first term.
So what happened?
Better lobbying. Honestly, better lobbying, and again, you've kind of got wolves in the henhouse on this.
Okay.
We're talking to Dan Primack from Axios.
So you wrote a great piece about Jeff Bezos' next move with AI. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so Bezos is CEO of a company again, or technically co-CEO. It's called Project Prometheus. They've said very little about themselves. There's been a few leaks. My understanding of what it is, that there's been some people who've thought, oh no, what he's doing is he's going to take AI. It's focused on factories and industrialization. And there's been some concern, what he wants to do is replace all the factory workers with robots. Not exactly true. In fact, I think he would say, although he might not say this explicitly, robots have already replaced people in the factories. That's really not the issue here anymore. And that's true. There's things called blackout factories in China, which are factories that run 24/7ven, basically like with a foreman.
Dark.
No, you don't need light. Robots can see. But
isn't that incredible?
Yeah. What Project Prometheus really is looking to do is deal with everything that comes before the product actually gets made on the manufacturing floor, things like prototyping, et cetera, which are things that do involve people, but more importantly, take a very long period of time. And you spend all this time trying to prototype something, then you've got to build it, then you see if it works. They believe that AI can do a lot of that so much quicker, and this could be applied to everything from autos to kind of every widget you would make.
What does prototype mean?
Make the original version of something. And usually it's a test, right? Like, okay, so, and literally make it, right? Like, we believe we're going to have this car, and it's going to have all these bells and whistles in it. Well, you got to find out the only way to really know if it's true is if you make it.
Yeah.
AI can really help in that testing process, and that's what they're talking about here.
So
when he tries to raise $100 billion, I would guess that would take him, 15 minutes? I mean, how hard is it?
It's a lot of money. Even for Bezos, it's a lot of money. It's the reason he's not just funding it out of his pocket.
But is it good or bad?
We'll see how they apply it. I don't think it's necessarily good or bad. I mean, I think if you're somebody I think there's going to be certain engineers who say, oh God, that's coming for my job. And I think there's going to be other engineers who say that's really going to help with my job and save me a lot of the torment I deal with spending 6 months trying to make something and then finding out that, oh God, we're a millimeter off on the thing and let's start again. So I think it depends on who you talk to, but it's an interesting application of AI because it's really these physical applications. We think so much about AI in terms of the chatbot and how ChatGPT or Claude is responding to us. It's moving toward the physical and robotics, and I think that's probably where it's going to have even maybe the greatest impact.
We're talking again with Dan Primack from Axios. So I'm so hungry for looking for somebody who's standing up and doing the right thing. I get all excited about Anthropic because I thought that they were standing up against the president, saying they didn't want to do this, didn't want to consent to mass surveillance of all Americans and these autonomous weapons. But I don't know if I'm right or wrong. So give us that story.
You're right to the extent that what they've said is their real concern is what can happen in the future. And Anthropic's concern with what DOD was doing or saying they could possibly do is that we really don't know what the AI tools of 6 months, let alone 6 years, are going to have the ability to do. And what we definitely know is that Congress cannot keep up with this. They can't come close to either understanding the technology and certainly can't write laws preemptively because they just don't know what the technology is going to be able to do. So Anthropic basically wanted to put some guardrails in. DOD's response, I get to some extent DOD's response, which is we can't fight a war with one hand tied behind our back. We can't call Anthropic every time we want to drop a bomb. And certain autonomous weapons I think generally approve of. For example, a missile interceptor, right? That's an autonomous weapon. You don't want to have 10 lines of officials saying yes, we can stop that missile coming in. But
I assume Anthropic wouldn't have a problem with that either. There are autonomous weapons and there are autonomous weapons, right?
You would think they wouldn't. I mean, ultimately to me, because OpenAI ends up signing a very similar contract, to me the Anthropic DoD thing was really a personality thing. It was really an ego thing between Dario, who's the CEO of Anthropic, and two people at DoD, Hegseth and a guy named Emil Michael, former Uber guy, who's really kind of in charge of that relationship. They just got on each other's nerves. They didn't think each other were being honest, and they got into kind of this private pissing match, which became a public pissing match, which became a lawsuit.
So now we're going to have OpenAI is going to be mass surveilling us all?
We'll see. I mean, come to the future. Let's find out. I mean, you would hope not, but the reality is AI already is soaking up an enormous amount of information about us, right? Or can be. And then the question becomes how or does the government use that information? Do they have access to it? And again, we just really don't know because we don't know the power. Like right now, for example, OpenAI or Anthropic doesn't know your tax information, for example, right? It's not, they haven't, we don't think they've soaked that up. In the future, could it? Maybe. And so there's questions like that.
They don't need to know our tax information. No. Elon Musk has our tax information. So it's fine. Can we get back to your comment you just slid by? I've told the story on the air only about 3,000 times, so why not one more to illustrate when Zuckerberg was testifying in front of Congress, I don't know, 7 or 8 years ago, after he testified, Orrin Hatch, the late Orrin Hatch from Utah, says, this is a free service, yeah? So how do you make money, Mr. Zuckerberg? And Zuckerberg smiled and paused and said, ads, Senator? That's the best giveaway that the ability of Congress to catch up and regulate this industry. It was primitive by comparison, was virtually non-existent.
None.
What are people who actually care about regulation but at the same time understand the grotesque limitations of Congress? What do they say?
Well, first, on the grotesque limitation of Congress, I'll give two concrete examples from the past week. One, we had Senator Mark Warner, Democrat, who, by the way, former tech founder, former venture capitalist before he was in Congress. He was on our stage in D.C., and he basically said, we really don't know what to do. We really need Sam Altman, who runs OpenAI, and Dario, who runs Anthropic, to come and help us figure this out. It's like, oh, God. And I was at a private event with another senator on the Republican side, so I won't say who he was because it was a private event, but he was being asked about job displacement. He said, well, this is, people said that about the internet in 1998. This ain't the internet. That was a distribution tool. This is a far bigger thing. Honestly, I don't have a great answer what should get done, except to say this. There should, every time you see economic modeling about budgets and all this stuff, there needs to, I think, start to be some acknowledgement that there's going to be these massive labor displacements, unlike anything we've ever seen before. Initially white collar and then maybe blue collar. I mean, you're already seeing it in terms of college grads. There was this situation yesterday which most people probably didn't see, but some activist investor took a little stake in Snapchat. Not a big deal, 2.5%. We want a lot of changes. We think we can make you more valuable. The main thing they wanted, though, were big layoffs because they said AI can already do the jobs of, your X thousands of employees. Get rid of them, make more money. This is coming big, and all these fights, Congress keeps viewing this as a near-term problem. It's a long-term problem, and I don't really know how to address it, but it's something that's got to be getting talked about, and so far it's not.
We only have 1 minute left. You wrote about something that I found pretty curious. There's this new GLP-1 related firm that decided to pick a man as its wellness officer who in his history has worked closely and I think considers his best friend somebody who had a cure for concussions that was a scam, had a cure for cancer that was a scam.
You're asking me to insult Tom Brady in Boston Public Library?
Exactly. And that would be Tom Brady.
Don't do it, Dan. Don't do it.
How credible is a company that has Tom Brady as their wellness officer?
They're not making the GLP-1s. They're the middleman. I wouldn't
What are they
necessarily.
doing?
So they're basically a middleman. There's a lot of insurance company, or let me rephrase that. There's a lot of employers who don't want to cover or fully cover GLP-1s in their employer insurance plans because they're extraordinarily expensive. So this is kind of a middleman that basically covers part of it for an insurer and then runs kind of a clinical program to help adherence. So the employer basically pays these guys. They're a middleman. It is designed to help companies offer GLP-1s without going out of business.
So it's okay to have Tom Brady there.
I mean, it's okay. I will say, I asked the CEO. The CEO is the former CEO of Twitter. Elon Musk's handpicked CEO of Twitter, this woman, Linda Yaccarino, whose history is not in healthcare either. Her history is in advertising.
Perfect.
Right. I asked her about Brady's relationship with him. She dodged that question over and over. Good ad exec. She was perfectly on message.
You do fabulous work at Axios.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dan, for coming in. Hope you weren't too hot while you were here.
All good.
We've been speaking with Dan Primack, business editor at Axios. I love Axios, and author of the daily Axios Pro. I always mispronounce this. How do you say it? R-A-T, Pro Rata, thank you.
How do you subscribe to that, by the way?
Pro
Put your
Rata
mic back on
newsletter.
really quickly.
Yeah.
Getprorata.axios.com.
Great.
Pro Rata. Okay, coming up after this quick break, the first in a new 5-part BPR series on sustainability and running. Marathon's coming up. The Long Run is the name of this series. We'll speak with Yuli Fernandez-Mendel about, she's from MIT and she's working at the front line of a changing textile industry and founder of her own sustainable sneaker nonprofit, the Footwear Collective. I'm Marjorie Egan. He's Jim Browder. You're listening to BPR 89.7 GBH, live from the BPL, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
I'm Edgar B. Herwick III. Today on the Curiosity Desk, it's a question I have always wanted to ask. Houston, do we have liftoff? One reporter on the scene of what's shaping up to maybe, possibly, finally be the launch of Artemis 2 and America's return to an era of space exploration zooms in. And this April Fool's Day, we ask, what's so funny? That's the Curiosity Desk today at 1 on GBH 89.7.
Support for our programs comes from you.
And Framingham State University, where the strength of a Commonwealth begins with access to opportunity. At FSU, students examine evidence and serve the public good. Framingham State University. Live to the truth. Learn more at framingham.edu. And Mass General Brigham Health Plan, providing coverage plans for individuals, families, employers, and retirees with benefits that help you live in your moment. More at massgeneralbrighamhealthplan.org.
Welcome back to BPR 89.7 GBH. I'm Jim Browdy. She's Marjorie Egan. Thank you all. Live from the BPL, streaming youtube.com/GBH News. Among our guests on Friday, former editor of the New York Times, Jill Abramson, will join us. And the Mayor Wu, will join us April 28th. We're working on dates for April for the Governor and the Attorney General. Today's the first day of our new 5-part pre-marathon BPR series on sustainability and running. It's called The Long Run. We're kicking things off with a conversation about sustainability, the actual shoes that we wear when we do run. Joined at the library desk by Yuli Fuentes-Medel, Executive Director of the Footwear Collective and Human of the Year, too. That's incredible. A nonprofit devoted, she'll explain, to building circular solutions. She'll explain that, too, for the footwear industry, and Program Director of MIT's Climate Project. Yuli, it's great to have you. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much. Okay,
Pull your mic up just a drop closer to your mouth. Perfect. That's good.
So
That's
I was
good.
very embarrassed because when I think of what I've done with my shoes, I've thrown them out, which is very bad. Now you can recycle. They have the places that come around and pick up your stuff, right? The textile recycling bit, but that's probably not very good either. So tell us, is there such a thing as a green running shoe?
So I don't think we need to think about the green shoe. I think we need to think about the system that will allow us to have that sustainability model.
Okay.
And whenever I think about what is a system, I always explain to my grandmother, a system is something that we all experience. One example is the airport. So when the companies in the airlines in the 1940s have to decide, are we going to have one airport for the Delta, for the airlines? They need to figure out a common place that is a system that we have in order to kind of us have the privilege to travel from one place to another place.
That's why she's an MIT person. She knows these things. Okay, go ahead.
So that's why it's not about thinking just about the single product, because what you want to preserve is that as shoes are part of our identity, we have to elevate shoes to think is our essential form of transportation.
That's a really amazing way to think of it. And by the way, what is it? 8 billion people on the planet, 24 billion shoes.
Yeah, I know
3
that.
for every man, woman, and child on average in the world. What exactly is the agenda of the Footwear Collective?
So we started as a spin-out nonprofit from MIT, where I still work. Our work is to work with the companies. We have 11 companies in the collective, from the footwear companies, some from Massachusetts, some from all over the world, thinking about the system, thinking about what will be the future airport to build, and thinking what are the things that they need in order to build the future products that are going to be sustainable for planet.
And isn't one of the problems, which I think learned last night, is unlike, for example, a T-shirt, which is essentially one piece of fabric or thereabouts. I didn't even think about this. A shoe has so many components that are different products that dealing with the sustainability issue there is far more complex than other clothing, for example, yes?
Exactly. And that's what took me to dedicate my life to this, right? So when you are dealing with a t-shirt, I have spent 15 years in my career working in the sector of fashion, technology, business, and climate. But shoe has a special product. They have an average of 36 parts. They use up to 8 materials. So the science comes to play really strong here. So we need to know materials, separation, and we need to know how we will distribute all of this.
So if you're going to go out to buy a running shoe now, there's not really one that's sustainable yet, or I've read about a couple of them with wood pulp shoelaces and bean-based midsoles and stuff like that.
You can eat it after you run in it, actually.
But generally speaking, if somebody wants to be environmentally correct with their shoes, what do they do now?
Yeah, so I think the now solutions are exactly that problem. Like, let me ask you back, and I will answer your question. Like, what do you do with your shoes? Probably most of them, because you love them, you have in your closet accumulating.
Yeah.
Yes. Right? That's the pain point that we really need to solve. I don't think we need to solve let's not choose the green shoe. Let's solve for the whole picture, which is what do you do with your closet? The companies have had used materials that are sustainable and in synchrony with the materiality of planet Earth are really good companies that we should support, because those are the ones who are really testing the market, but with the small collections, because the reality is that they can do just a trip from here to Cape Cod, but they cannot do the trip in analogy of the airline from here to London and global.
Oh.
And these companies have to be global, right? We have to create an equity here because everyone has to have a clean system.
So what should we do? There are these companies like Black Earth. They have one in Brookline where they will come around and pick up your textiles, and they say that they recycle them. I don't know if I assume they do. Is that what you should do? Have textile recycling?
So part of the work we're doing in Massachusetts, which is exciting, is we're working with the state, with the Massachusetts AI Hub, in developing a tool for that. So that's that's new. So each shoe will have a different pathway. That's one thing. Think about a hiking boot that has many parts, many complexities. Maybe we will interact with that shoe in a different way in the future, right? Because maybe that shoe could last longer, but it could be used for many other people, right? Because at the moment that you probably dispose that hiking shoe, many years has happened. So there isn't use times. But a flip-flop, when the flip-flop breaks, you might want to have that flip-flop going back to your garden and do something and kind of have materials that will have. That doesn't exist today, only thinking in materiality. So having a conscious version of what you do today with your shoes will be different from what we can do if we solve it in 10 more years. Today, you donate, right? So the local Goodwills are a good example of a network. The first Goodwill in Massachusetts is from Boston. They've been reselling all of the shoes. There is an average of 2 or 3 pairs that they resell. The reality is that people will use secondhand shoes. We just don't know it. But by doing so, that money goes to create jobs, right? So we need to be creative about how and what do we do with the use case of shoes that could be used in many more times. The ones that are used more single times, I think that is when critical material science comes in. There is when you start investing in building materials that are going to be in more synchrony that you can recover.
But if I may interrupt, isn't it, when people talk about sustainability sort of as an umbrella when it comes to shoes, it seems to me it's not so easy to define, because there may be a shoe that's made out of fossils that lasts for interminable periods of time, which is a good thing, the long-lasting, as compared to something with recyclable materials that lasts a short period of time. How do you even decide which is preferable? Because that fossil-produced shoe you could give to somebody else. So how do you decide what the desirable, sustainable shoe is? Do you know what I mean?
I agree. I can narrow it down to what we're talking, which is the Boston Marathon, right?
Yeah.
So the runner has to choose for that shoe. And today those shoes, the good ones, probably are made with fossil fuel. Period. The good news about that and the bad news is the companies need to think in a triangle. They need to think about the performance, because you don't want to have injury runners. They need to have about the durability of the pair, because they're now the runners will run based on miles, but they also now need to start incorporating the triangle. Okay, what happened to the shoes after? And that's the work that hasn't been done. That's the leg of the stool that hasn't been worked out. Therefore, definition of sustainability has to go in line with what the industry will be able to produce in the next 3-5 10.
So while you're doing your work and dedicating your life to this, which is pretty incredible, what does a person do who wants to do the right thing today, based on what we know? What do they do in terms of what they buy and what they do with what they've already bought?
The shoes you have in your closet. So one of the things we're doing is the grant with Massachusetts. We are going to have the opportunity to support with that. We're launching an app. It's called The Shoes.
Where you can take a picture of the shoe, right?
You can take a picture of your shoe. In the future, we will allow you to choose what is your pathway. You will have your shoe story, because many of us have our own shoe story. You have your favorite shoe.
I do.
And then help you identify what is the best pathway for that shoe. Examples. Some of them that are the good ones, you might want to donate it because it's still good enough. You went to a wedding, high heels, you use it once, you might want to sell it, so that you will have the opportunity to resell. Today in the market, you can go to eBay, the Depop's, and markets
That's
to
great.
sell.
When's that going to be available?
We hope this happens. So we're going to do an alpha party launch for just take the pictures. We need the citizens of Massachusetts giving us their pictures of the shoe to train the algorithm. This is the power of Massachusetts. We have the best AI people here. We can create it. We're hoping in a year we will have the first application. So maybe I come back to tell you more about that.
That's neat.
That's great. Well, your work is amazing, and it's something I hadn't thought about, which really matters.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank
for
you
what you're
very
doing.
much for coming in. Congratulations on all your great work. And we can all figure out, maybe in a year, what to do with the 19 pairs of shoes most of us have in our closets. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for the invitation.
We're talking with
Really
Joyce Wednesdays Medell. She's Executive Director of the Footwear Collective and Program Director of MIT's Climate Project. We're going to be talking a lot about shoes and sustainability leading up to the marathon. It's our new series, The Long Run, made possible by Schneider Electric. Coming up after this quick break, Jim is forced us to do it yet again, dragging out another old chestnut. It is April 1st, as you may know, so we're opening up the phone and text lines to talk about April Fool's Day. Do you bother trying to fool your friends and family? Does it drive you nuts that people try to fool you? What is your favorite prank? If you have one, I'm Marjorie Egan. He's Jim Browdy, listening to BPR 89.7 GBH live from the Boston Public Library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
Massachusetts gateway cities have been in some major need of TLC. But in Revere, people are already starting to see the results of the state's efforts to bring life back to these neighborhoods.
The Shirley Ave neighborhood is probably one of the most transformed neighborhoods. I would even contest that it's one of the most largely transformed neighborhoods in the Commonwealth over the last decade.
I'm Trajan Warren. You can find the rest of that story online at gbhnews.org.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you. And Schneider Electric, bringing sustainability advisory services to the Boston Athletic Association and committed to helping advance energy tech worldwide. Learn more about the Schneider Electric and BAA partnership at se.com. And Atlantic Design Center by Eldridge Lumber and Hardware, committed to helping customers achieve their vision for a new kitchen or bathroom and guiding them from design to completion. With showrooms in York and Portland, Maine. AtlanticDesignCTR.com.
Welcome back to BPR and 89.7 GBH. Jim Browdy, Marge Regan, live at the library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. It's Poisson d'Avril Day here on Boston Public Radio. That's French, Marjorie, for April Fool's Day. And like we do every solitary year here at BPR, we're opening the phone and text lines to you at 877-301-8970 for a variety of April Fool's Day issues. At what age do you finally throw in the towel and demand that the pranking stop? The answer is never. And are you on board well into adulthood? The answer is yes. And what do you make of all these lame corporate PR stunts that pass as pranks? Sort of like an Am I the A-hole segment. Are you a jerk for insisting on pranking your coworkers, friends, family, and strangers on this fateful day? Or is it a-holish behavior to be a bad sport? Pranks gone wrong, pranks gone right. Give us your examples. Try to do a little self-editing, meaning if the thing really isn't that interesting or funny, just listen. Don't call. But if you've had a great one in your life, give us a buzz at 877-301-8970. I don't want to brag, by the way, but Jamie and I totally got Marjorie this morning for like the 15th straight year in a row. We totally and completely
It turns out
got her.
You guys were both plotting against me starting yesterday. And this little story you told me this morning
Let's not say what the story was.
12 seconds before I said it was an April Fool. I was so proud of myself.
I have
I
to
been
say,
taken
you showed
year
great
after. Well, you know,
confidence.
I was very aware that it was April 1st, and I used to do this all the time. I used to do every year with my kids. My mother did this. I was carrying on the tradition. And then I just said enough with this April Fool stuff.
Never enough.
But you kept going. And
by the way, just so you know, I worked so hard at this. I texted Marjorie yesterday. I called her with a deep concern I had about something.
Yep.
Jamie and I spent no more than 2 hours on the phone last night figuring out what his role would be in this thing. Jamie started the discussion today. And Marjorie, I really am proud of you because is it fair to say you're a fairly easy mark when it comes to these things?
Fool me once.
Shame on you.
Fool me
twice. You can't be fooled again. Can we get that sound from George Bush? Thank you.
I know. It's very good.
877-301-8970. If you've done a good one or been the victim of a good one, share with us. The most famous ones I can think of, obviously, there's the spaghetti tree. You know what's interesting?
Oh, the spaghetti tree.
The British is better
I love
at this,
that.
by the way. The BBC did the spaghetti tree. The BBC did the thing. This is 1980. They said Big Ben in London was going to be changed to a digital clock. And instead of Big Ben, it's going to be called Digital Dave, which and by the way, this has nothing to do with this.
It doesn't, but it's great sound.
George W. Bush giving a speech where he talks about that famous line. Here's Bush.
There's an old saying in Tennessee, I know it's in Texas, probably in Tennessee, that says, fool me once, shame on you. If fool me, we can't get fooled again.
Exactly. Thank you, President Bush. I said it perfectly. Well, Marjorie couldn't be fooled again this morning. Tell us what you're doing, and if you're a child like I am who decides, I'm doing this again next year with Jamie, by the way. I'm just going to start earlier. 877. Tell people what 301-8970. What's the spaghetti tree? Tell people.
The spaghetti tree was this idea that spaghetti was growing on trees, and they had all these visuals of people out there harvesting spaghetti. All these women smiling. They were getting the spaghetti off the trees. And some people fell for it, and some people did not fall for it. There was a big fight over it, spaghetti bushes and spaghetti trees. So that was a spaghetti tree thing. But here's my local ones that are more...
like what?
Well, remember the one that these guys got fired for this? They were radio hosts. They said that Tom Menino had died in a car crash. This was back in 1998. And people
was horrible. That was actually horrible.
People flipped out. And then there was a panic. This is again in Boston when a local CBS affiliate broadcast this is going back a ways, in 1980, but that Milton's Great Blue Hill was a volcano on the verge of erupting, and people freaked out about that. So there have been a lot of these things locally that people have freaked out about. So just be very careful if you're in the broadcasting business, saying that something is a joke.
You know what?
Dunkin' Donuts. You read about Dunkin' Donuts?
Before you get there, the key to everything is planning. And listen to this guy. This guy is my hero. This is an anonymous text. A long time ago when I lived in Hawaii, I put my neighbor's waterfront house up for sale. For dirt cheap, advertised an open house Sunday morning between 6 and 9. Hundreds of people showed up. He was a heavy drinker answering the door in his underwear, and I had no idea what was going on. Do you remember it wasn't April 1st? I threw a going-away party in the South Bronx for the executive director of the place I work, South Bronx Legal Services, where thousands of neighbors, people in the community came to his going-away party. And you know what he was not doing, Marjorie? Going away.
He was not going away.
But that was not April Fool's.
He was not going. Now, is this Dunkin' Donuts story April Fool's or is this real?
I don't know.
Dunkin's offering a million free coffees on April 1st, 2026.
Yeah, I read that. I don't know.
The promotion is limited to Dunkin' Rewards members who can use the promo code Still Not a Joke in the app and get free coffee.
I don't know.
I don't know either. But somebody's probably been to Dunkin' Donuts today.
How juvenile were the ones you did when your kids were not? Well, you even did it when they were in their 20s. How
I did
juvenile
it for a long
were they?
time.
What's an example?
I can't remember any. I remember though I got you with all these really ridiculous ones.
No, it's
like
not
you
true.
had a big hole in your shirt and you're turning around trying to see the hole in your shirt.
Let me tell you how
then the next year I
funny
said
that
you had a hole in your pants. Then I said you had a hole in your shoes. I mean,
that's so funny.
You fell for it every year.
So mature.
I loved it. He's looking over his shoulder trying to see the hole.
We understand what I was doing, Margaret. You don't have to act it out. Let's go to Steve in Woburn. We're celebrating a very important holiday, April Fool's Day. Hi there, Steve. How are you?
Hey, Jim. How are you?
Excellent.
So what you do is you go to the when the lottery's big. You can do it any time of the year, but it works good on April 1st, too. You buy the lottery ticket for the winning number from the night before. And then you give the ticket to somebody and you say, can you check the number for me? And while they're checking the Mega Millions numbers, they realize that you're winning the Mega Millions numbers, not realizing that the date is from today, not from yesterday.
That is brilliant.
God.
Have you done that?
It gets them every time.
Have you done that?
It's hilarious. I had one guy called his wife and said, what's the numbers? Because he didn't have a newspaper. And she's reading out the numbers, and he's checking my numbers at the same time she's reading the numbers. And he's like, I'm like, you're lying. I didn't win. You're lying. And he was freaking out. It was hilarious.
That is pretty easy and pretty good. Thank you, Steve. That was great, actually. That's a good one.
Here's
Thank
a good
you for
one.
the call.
The year after Rosalind Carter died, I told my brother that Jimmy Carter was getting remarried, and he fell for it, his brother did. So I told him his fiancée was a Trump supporter. My brother lost his mind. So I had to tell him it was an April Fool's joke. By the way, it is April Fool's tonight, the president's big speech. I don't think he would do an April Fool type thing.
He has such a fabulous sense of
humor.
humor.
Do you think? I don't
Here's
know.
one related to that. Anonymous texter. Did you hear the one where Trump would make America great again? That'd be... It's a good April Fool's
and
thing.
Someone said that the good thing about my jokes, April Fool's jokes for you, about your hole in your shirt, hole in your pants, hole in your shoes, a texter says Jim regularly does have holes in his shirt.
Okay, fine. Thank you. Wendell in a car. It's April Fool's Day. Welcome to the show. Hi.
Hi, how you doing?
I think we're good. Thank you for asking. What's up?
Well, on April Fool's 1954, my mother was on television teaching Kansas cooks how to make puff pastries, specifically cream puffs.
Mm-hmm.
So she made an extra batch of cream puffs, which she stuffed with cotton balls. And
I like it.
At the end of the show, she put them out, and the crew rushed her kitchen.
Yeah.
And she said the best thing about it was that the first guy to hit the tray bit into his cream puff, you could see briefly on his face that he knew what was going on, but that he didn't say anything, so that the guy behind him
Pretty good.
everybody had to participate in the
prank.
In the prank.
Let me tell you something. The fact that you remember that with such beautiful detail, Wendell, 70 years after the fact, is absolutely spectacular. Thanks for sharing it with us, Wendell. Thank you for the call. Appreciate
Here's
it.
one. Here's one. This is a very not funny April Fool's. Back in 2013, when my then husband and I sat our kids down to tell them we were getting a divorce, our oldest asked, "Is this an April Fool's joke?" And we turned toward each other and everybody burst into tears. So April Fool's is no longer a fun day, sadly. And here's one that is kind of...
I'm glad you held that up for me.
I know. I thought that would be good.
Yeah.
Listen to this one. Covering sensors on remote control. So what you do is you place a tiny piece of tape over the TV's remote sensor, and then you watch somebody flipping the buttons, moving the remote all over the place, aiming the remote from every different angle, and wondering why the TV has suddenly betrayed them is all
Can
part
I ask
of
you
fun.
something?
What?
Did you come in? I thought that what Jamie and I crafted was actually quite brilliant today. Did you come in to work today?
Because I knew you were going to do an April Fool's. I was waiting for it. I knew you were going to do it.
But you know what I did? I thought was brilliant. At our staff meeting this morning, I turned to you and I said, and I thought this was great. I said, by the way, don't think I don't have something coming, Marjorie. There are 15 more hours today. And I thought that was going to throw you off. It apparently did not. Is that correct?
Well, maybe because what you told me was going to happen was so ridiculous that I knew it probably wasn't going to happen,
Right.
Jim.
Well, there's always, as I say, we have 11 hours left today, Marjorie.
Okay, here's one. This person bakes cinnamon rolls. Definitely no cinnamon in this recipe. Everyone's going to expect a sweet treat, and then when they bite into the cinnamon roll, it's actually filled with pulled pork and barbecue sauce.
Can I tell you something? I'd be right there. If it's filled with pulled pork, I am totally fine.
Yeah,
By the way, Maddie, our colleague, do you see the clock over there that has our timer?
She fooled me this morning with the poisson.
Right, that's the poisson d'avril.
That's right.
Thank
That's
you.
what they
Who's
call
that,
it in
Julian?
France.
Thank you.
The April Fool's thing in France, I guess, is
Poisson d'avril.
Poisson d'avril.
You see one on the clock right there?
Huh?
Can we hear? Oh, there's one right here on the thing. Can we get a shot of that on the camera there on the set? Where the hell is it? Yeah, here it comes. Poisson d'avril. Oh, a little closer. A little closer. There it is. Poisson d'avril. I think little kids in France, don't they plop that on everything? Kind of thing? Thank you for suggesting that.
Here's another one that
What is it?
apparently is huge. Adding a few drops of food coloring to the milk container and then watch everybody's shock when they pour out red milk.
Don't you think that those are rather, you need to be more, like you have to construct something, like Jamie and I did. You can put toothpaste. You can separate Oreos and put toothpaste in the middle rather than the cream thing. But that's not, you need a little, you have to work at it, I think, to make it as much fun as it should. Okay, she doesn't agree with that.
Well, here's another one. Hiding all the forks and spoons so that when everybody pulls out the drawer to have their meal, they're all gone.
Yeah, well, that's okay. Fine.
You don't like that one, Jim?
You know what Jamie is doing? Can I tell you something? This is how pathetic Jamie is. Jamie just wrote us a note. He says, for the record, Marjorie, I was an unwilling participant in this prank. Meaning, had it worked, he would have been a willing participant. Since it failed, he is an unwilling participant. Chris in Somerville, hey.
Hello.
Hello to you.
Good, thanks. So here's a April Fool's joke gone wrong, I guess. Years ago, my mother would pack lunches for my father and all my siblings, and she thought, this will be great. I'll write April Fool's on a piece of paper and put it in the sandwiches. And when we all came home that day, she was sort of giddy, waiting for us to react. Unfortunately, none of us noticed, and we ate the April Fool's joke.
That is actually pretty good, Chris. I like that. Chris, thank you for that story. We appreciate it.
A simple office prank is putting tape over the laser on the bottom of the computer mouse of your coworker and then watch them struggling and swearing and trying to get the cursor to move. That's always a good time
I like
in the
that.
office.
Do you like that one?
Yeah, I think that's kind of a clever one. It's harmless. It's not going to do anything. Then this other person said they were a student at Simmons College in sociology class, and they were reading Maya Angelou. The professor told us he lined up Maya to come to our class and speak, and everybody got all excited. And then he said, April Fool, when they were all there to see Maya speak.
See, I'm not into the cruel. That's cruel. Would you not agree? And how about that first guy that called, which was rather brilliant, I should say, but also cruel, is giving the lottery numbers to somebody a day after, and you think you won like $300 million?
Well, that's kind of cruel, too, because you're all excited for about a minute and a half.
It's brilliant, though, at the same cruel time, I should say.
877-301-8970 is the number. Let's go to Kate in Watertown. Hi, Kate.
Hi.
Hi.
So, yeah, when my sister was a teenager, like decades ago, my dad unscrewed the shower head and filled it with cocoa powder.
Oh.
She was getting ready for school, and she hopped in the shower. It looked like sewer water was coming out.
Now, that is fabulous. That is fabulous. Your father sounds like a fabulous guy. I'm sorry I never got to meet him, but that is a good one. Kate, thanks for sharing that with us.
Well, here's another shower one. Add a cardboard size, life-size cutout or wall decal of someone in the shower, and then when somebody goes into the shower, hear them screech and yell when they open the shower curtain. Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, the place where I go do yoga at Halloween, there's a life-size 6-foot thing of the bad guy in the Halloween movie with the
Jason.
Yeah,
Is it Jason in the Halloween
and he puts
movie?
it there every year. And every year I've walked by it and become hysterical because I forget it's there and it's really scary and it's this huge life-size thing, and everybody watches and laughs at the people who get scared by it.
Okay, so what are the odds? I would say the odds are quite good that Edgar B. Herrick III knows of something that we do not know. Where April Fool's and the notion of a prank on April 1st originated. Do you think he knows? Oh, here
Jim,
he is.
Hello, Jim. I do not have that for you, to be honest. I'm sure I have done that story in the past, but since I've done so many stories, it has slipped right out of my head. I don't really have an answer for you.
Now, do you participate in this? Jamie and I came very close to getting Marjorie for like the 30th straight year in a row today. And she,
with all this preparation, I now realize that the phone calls you made to me last night about this particular subject were all a bunch of baloney, too,
they were a bunch of baloney.
Yeah.
They were set up today.
This is several phone calls. They put so much effort into this.
They did.
Well, now I'm going to one-up you here because you want to talk about effort. This is one of the longest cons in history. But Jim, I'm very excited we're finally here today so that we can lay this out. So the Curiosity Desk, this show. It is an April Fool's prank. Jim, you are going back to 3 hours on BPR starting tomorrow. I can finally reveal it has taken so much work and so much energy to do this for the last few months.
Okay, as I say, we don't believe in cruel pranks. You know what I mean? So there you... What are you doing on the show thing?
Well, in honor of April Fools, we're going to talk with the researcher just about laughter. What is laughter? Why do we do it? Because if you actually step back and think about it, it's kind of strange that we laugh, but we do. And then we're also really excited. Obviously, you were talking about it yesterday. Artemis 2 on schedule to launch today. So we talk with a reporter from the Houston Chronicle who's on the ground in Cape Canaveral, Florida, at the Kennedy Space Center at the launch, which right now still looks like all systems go.
You know, speaking of laughter, you might ask this person, we've said this before, Chuck Todd told us about 2 years ago, he spent a weekend once looking at every single video he could ever see of Donald Trump. And you know what Donald Trump never did once in those videos?
Never laughed.
Yeah. So what does that say about I think we know.
It's a great question, Jim.
Yeah.
There it is.
You know what? I remember being down in Florida once just by accident near Cape Canaveral and being quite far away, but you could it's so powerful. You could feel.
Really, you've been near
I didn't mean
when there
to
was a
go
launch.
there. I happened to be near like Marjorie was, and I saw some.
Well, you could feel the ground.
Yeah, shake.
It was incredible. So
I mean, the amount of fuel that is needed and the amount of power that is in that rocket blast is it's mind-boggling.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one.
That's 6 something tonight, by the way, if people are
6:24.
into that. 6:24. Thank you. Edgar will be listening. Thanks.
Happy April Fool's Day,
April Fool's
Edgar.
Day.
And to you.
Thank you for listening to another edition of BPR, Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH. Keep up with us 24/7 by way of our podcast. Check out our TikTok page at Boston Public Radio. Tomorrow we're going to talk with political commentator Chuck Todd after Trump's address to the nation tonight on Iran, former Massachusetts Public Safety Secretary Andrea Cabral, and the team from Common Man for Ukraine. This wonderful New Hampshire-based aid group, fresh back from yet another mission to Ukraine to give out goods and food and all sorts of clothing, etc. Our crew, Zoe Matthews, Nicole Garcia, Hannah Loss, our engineer John McClaw Parker, our executive producer Jane Bologna. Special thanks to our BPL staff, Maddie Guy, Patrick Lally, Juan Jose Cadena, thanks to our host of the Newsfeed Cafe and across the street at the Lenox Hotel. Stay tuned to the Curiosity Desk, starting immediately after us on 89.7 GBH. And the Culture Show with Jared Bowen starts at 2 with chef and restaurateur Jason Santos on his new cookbook, Citrus and Salt, Coastal Mexican Fare from Boston's hottest restaurant. You must know about that. You know all the hot restaurants, Jim.
Maybe I do, maybe I don't.
Okay. I am Marjorie Egan.
Jim Browdy.
Thanks again for tuning in
Thanks
today.
all.
Hope you can tune in tomorrow. Happy April Fool's Day. Hope if you fooled somebody, it worked out for you. It did not work out for Jim, and he won't recover for quite some time. Thanks for listening. Bye.
From the stories of centuries past to discoveries that will define our future, How Did We Get Here's, how-tos, and more. Journey with us down the rabbit hole on the Curiosity Desk. Coming up next on GBH 89.7.
Support for GBH comes from you.
And Seasons 4, the outdoor living store in Lexington, featuring over 100 styles of outdoor furniture delivered throughout New England, plus a wide selection of plants, statuary, and garden accessories. April event in progress. Seasons4.com. And Safety Insurance, offering a variety of home insurance products to cover your home's increased value. You can ask an independent agent about safety insurance. Safety Insurance will help you manage life's storms.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you?
I'm Edgar B. Herwick III. Today on the Curiosity Desk, a historic liftoff is slated for 6:24 this evening. We check in with Houston Chronicle space reporter Andrea Leinfelder from the Kennedy Space Center in Florida, who's covering all things Artemis 2 as astronauts prepare for their first big moonshot in more than half a century. Meanwhile, back here on Earth and a little closer to home, a team of local scientists are trying to answer the question, how much CO2 can our oceans suck out of the atmosphere? And could targeted geoengineering ward off the worst of climate change? Or are we risking unforeseen catastrophe of a different nature? Plus, tread carefully, you guys. Today is April Fool's Day. So what exactly is so funny? We'll investigate this hour on the Curiosity Desk.
Live from NPR News, I'm Lakshmi Singh. The U.S. Supreme Court cast doubt on President Trump's argument for limiting birthright citizenship. Trump's executive order says children born in the U.S. to parents in the country illegally, temporarily, or even with a long-term visa are not automatically eligible. The ACLU argues that order violates a constitutional provision under the 14th Amendment. Here's NPR's Carrie Johnson.
A number of the justices at the center of the court, from the Chief Justice John Roberts to Neil Gorsuch, another Trump appointee, to Elena Kagan, an Obama appointee, raised some questions about the Trump administration's case. Roberts said their arguments in some ways were quirky and idiosyncratic. Kagan called them esoteric. Gorsuch talked about how the Solicitor General John Sauer was reaching to sources in Roman law to make his argument that the 14th Amendment didn't mean what it says.
Now, Trump was the first sitting president to attend oral arguments at the Supreme Court. NPR's Nina Totenberg, who has covered the High Court for decades, noted the White House imposed a new restriction on how journalists covered proceedings.
Before the proceedings started, the guards told us to sit down, and I very clearly said, this is our job, is to look and see what's going on in this courtroom, at least before the proceedings begin. And they said, well, I'm sorry, this isn't our decision. This is a new rule that the White House imposed on us. So I didn't see anything.
Election officials say they will challenge President Trump's decision to have the federal government play a role in mail-in ballots. NPR's Ashley Lopez reports.
President Trump signed an executive order Tuesday that seeks to create a list of U.S. citizens who are eligible to vote in each state. The order also instructs the U.S. Postal Service to administer and track mail-in ballots nationwide, which is currently done by local officials. Legal experts and state election officials are calling this effort an overreach.
In the U.S.-Israel war against Iran, Israeli medics say a child has been critically wounded in an Iranian strike. NPR's Daniel Estrin has more from Tel Aviv.
Medical officials say the young girl and several others were wounded when Iran fired a cluster munition, a missile that opened up into smaller warheads. Israeli media is reporting Israeli defense officials anticipate increased Iranian missile fire as Jews in Israel prepare to celebrate Passover this evening. In a televised speech, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu echoed the biblical Passover story of the 10 plagues in ancient Egypt. He said Israel had dealt 10 plagues upon Iran and other enemies in the last few years of war. Israel is not believed to be playing a role in U.S. efforts toward Iran's ceasefire negotiations. Netanyahu's foreign policy advisor, Ophir Falk, told NPR,
"We're negotiating with bombs."
Daniel Estrin, NPR News, Tel Aviv.
This is NPR News.
Good afternoon. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. The start of World Cup games hosted here in Massachusetts is just over 2 months away. And as GBH's Sam Turkin reports, we now know all the teams that'll play at Gillette in opening round matches.
Earlier today, Iraq beat Bolivia 2-1 to secure the final spot in the World Cup. It's the first time in 40 years the Iraqi team has made the tournament. They'll play their first game of this year's World Cup against Norway on June 16th. There will be 6 additional matches at Gillette, including one in the round of 32 and another in the quarterfinals. Some of the other teams scheduled to play in Foxborough are Ghana, France, and Haiti. State officials say they expect more than 2 million visitors to come to Greater Boston for the games. Sam Turkin, GBH News.
And tickets went on sale today, and they are flying off the shelves. A standoff in Nantucket's cannabis industry. The Island Zoning Board issued a cease and desist order to a company providing home deliveries, stating that local zoning does not allow the delivery of cannabis. But the providers, Act Natural, say the state law does allow deliveries and that state law prompts local zoning. The Nantucket Current has the story. Social J are the delivery providers collaborating with Act Natural. The company has stopped deliveries since the cease and desist order was issued in February, but now the issue on Nantucket Select Board agenda is for tomorrow in executive session. The company hopes to settle the issue outside of the courts. 71 degrees in Boston. We'll take it. That's the news here at GBH.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Progressive Insurance with Snapshot, which monitors safe driving habits to determine a personalized rate at Progressive.com. Not available in California or from all agents. This is NPR.
You're listening to the Curiosity Desk on GBH. I'm Edgar B. Herwick III. We are streaming live at youtube.com/GBH News. Later this evening, if all goes according to plan, and so far it has, 4 astronauts who, as I look at the news live feed right now, are suiting up, will be launching into space on a 10-day flight to and around the moon before returning back to Earth. Yes, the Artemis 2 mission is the first time in nearly 60 years that NASA astronauts are heading to the moon. Why go back? What has taken so long? And how can 4 people live inside a small space capsule for over a week together? A little earlier, we met up with Houston Chronicle space reporter Andrea Leinfelder, who is on the ground in Cape Canaveral, Florida, at the Kennedy Space Center, where Artemis 2 is preparing still to launch.
Hi, thanks for having me. It's an exciting day to be here.
I can only imagine. So let's start right there. Can you describe to us where are you relative to what's going to happen, and just what is the buzz and vibes like on the ground there?
Yeah, so I'm at NASA's Kennedy Space Center. I'm near the Vehicle Assembly Building, which is one of the areas you can watch the launch. It's a really great view for the media. And And it's quiet right now. I got here 8 hours early, and
just in case.
Yeah. Well, okay. So I got here 8 hours early, and it's still not early enough because every seat in the media room's taken. I will be sitting on the floor writing the rest of the day. It is. It's very busy in the media room, but the lawn is not quite ready yet. So the lawn is out here, and that's where people will come outside for the launch, and it's going to be jam-packed later today. Right now, it's still people are trickling in there. The tanking started a while ago, and it seems to be going pretty well so far. That is going to be the biggest thing people watch to see if this goes off today, is how well they're able to load propellant onto this rocket, because that tends to be a little difficult with this rocket. So everyone here is just kind of watching the tanking, prepping their articles, getting ready for this historic mission.
So you have been to launches before. How is this similar to those, and how is it different already?
Yeah. So, well, this is a crewed launch. And so I feel like crewed launches always have more attention because it's special when you launch people on a rocket. It's much more, people really, you feel like you're on it, right? You experience it with them. And so it's very different when you launch people. This one is especially different because this is the first time this rocket has ever launched people. So, it's flown once before, but without astronauts. So this will be the first time we'll have astronauts on this Space Launch System rocket and in the Orion capsule. But it's also the first time astronauts are going back to the moon in more than 50 years. They're not landing on the surface. This is kind of like a step in that direction as NASA continues testing its systems and preparing for moon landing. But it's a big deal. And this time, it's not like the Apollo era. It is a very diverse crew that is going up there. We've got Victor Glover's the first Black astronaut. We've got Christina Hammock-Cook, the first woman, and we've got Jeremy Hansen, the first Canadian. All of these will be the first going around the moon. And then the commander is also Reed Wiseman. So it's a really great crew going up there, and everyone's just waiting to see them launch.
You listen to the Curiosity Desk on GBH. We're talking with Houston Chronicle space reporter Andrea Leinfelder about Artemis 2. She is on the ground in Cape Canaveral, Florida, where in just a few hours, if all goes according to plan, the Artemis 2 launch will happen today. You gave us a little bit of context there, but for those who have not been following this terribly closely, what's going on with the Artemis program? Presumably there was an Artemis 1 if this is Artemis 2. As you just said, we're not putting boots on the ground, so to speak, on the moon in this mission, but that's going to come down the road. What's going on with this mission, and how is it part of the larger Artemis program?
Yeah, so the Artemis program is NASA wants to go back to the moon, but they don't want to do the Apollo program. They don't want to plant a flag, leave boot prints, and not go back, right? They want to go back to the moon and create a sustainable presence. We want to stay there. We want to build a moon base, learn to live and work on the moon so that future missions can go on to Mars. And so Artemis 1 was the first launch toward this effort. It was an uncrewed launch, no humans on board. And it spent about 25 days orbiting in space, orbiting the moon and going back and forth. And so that mission was a longer mission because they really want to check the spacecraft out before putting people on it. This mission is a 10-day mission. It's the first time people are going to launch on the rocket and the spacecraft. So it's really important to test the life support systems of Orion. You want to make sure that it's removing carbon dioxide correctly. You want to make sure that the bathrooms work. You want to make sure that it can keep 4 people alive for, these longer missions. And so they're going to test the life support systems. They're going to fly around the moon in a trajectory that doesn't enter the moon's orbit, but it's kind of like a figure 8 around the moon and the Earth. And so the idea is that if something were to happen, the Earth-Moon gravity field would bring them back home. And so they are going to go around the moon and back, and it'll take about 10 days.
And they're going to go their path around the moon is taking them further than any other humans have been from the Earth. Is that right?
If they launch today, and I think a couple next few days, it depends on the launch day, but if they launch today, they will go farther than humans have ever gone before. The record is currently held by Apollo 13, and they're just going to eke by it, I think roughly 4,000 miles farther, but it is still farther. Yeah.
I mean, 4,000 miles is still 4,000 miles. Now, you keep saying if the launch happens today, how much of a done deal is it? You mentioned, I think, the tanking, which is one place where you could have some issues, but how certain are folks, as you sit there right now, that this is going to happen today?
Yeah, so NASA it's always we prepare and we plan, but, we don't expect. And so they are ready to go. And if it's not today, they'll go when the hardware is ready. So that is what NASA will constantly say. It is very difficult to launch a rocket. Rocket science is hard. A lot of people like to tell me hundreds of little things, thousands of little things all have to be perfect, right? It can't just be one big thing. And so there's a lot that has to happen. And so everyone is feeling pretty optimistic. Things are kind of like quiet, taking going well. There's no issues that they're working as of right now. And so it's feeling good. Weather's good. Last time I heard, there was an 80% chance of favorable weather for launch conditions. So,
Okay.
I mean, things are trending in the right direction, but it is the first time people launch on this rocket. So they will definitely make sure that everything is absolutely safe before they go. And scrubs are just kind of part of the industry. So that's why I keep saying if.
Yeah. And, there have been a lot of delays in the lead up to this Artemis, too. It's kind of been pushed down the road a couple of times. Is that generally normal? Doesn't really portend anything, as you point out? Is that just the nature of trying to do this and how many things have to go right in order for it to happen?
Yeah, rocket science is hard. Rockets often are delayed. I feel like they have ambitious schedules and they slip a lot. That is pretty normal for the industry. This rocket in general, it has some difficulty loading propellant because one of its propellant is liquid hydrogen, and that is just very tiny, very light. It has a propensity for leaking. And so that is a problem with this rocket in particular. But I would say, delays are pretty normal in the space industry.
Speaking of timelines, it has been, 54 years since we have been to the moon. Did we forget how to do this? Like, what has taken so long? Why has it been more than half a century since we've done this?
Yeah, so the last mission was Apollo 17 in 1972. So there are a bunch of different ways to answer that question. A big one is just that the focus has been on low Earth orbit. And once a big NASA mission starts, it kind of can stay there for decades. And so really, the space shuttle, the International Space Station, NASA has been focused on learning to live and work in low Earth orbit, to live and work on this space station, to build the shuttle, fly the shuttle. So that really did take the agency's focus for a long time. And then it just takes a while for politics to get moving toward another goal. And then because it had been so long, it's very different going to the moon than living in low Earth orbit. You need different rockets. When you live on the moon, it's going to take different systems, right? There's a little bit of gravity, so it's not totally microgravity. So it's there's just a lot technically there, and then politically there. But right now, there's also I would say an increased pressure to go back to the moon because now we're in a race with China. Yeah. China is also trying to land people on the moon, so that also kind of spurs things along. But it's just a lot to do with budget and political priorities and just getting the know-how back.
And then, in terms of, the attention on this and what it sort of feels like such a big deal. But again, it's sort of like, haven't we done this already? We've been to the moon. We've been there a bunch of times. Like, what makes this such a big deal?
Yeah, there is still a ton to learn from the moon. And one of my favorite things about this mission is even though they're not landing on the surface, the astronauts have been preparing with lunar geologists to study it. And the human eye is one of the most sophisticated cameras, one of the most sophisticated pieces of technology, they keep saying. And so they'll be able to tease out colors that tell them, different processes on the moon and how old different parts of the moon are. And ultimately, the moon is a witness plate for the entire solar system. So like, if you know more about the moon, you could learn how the solar system evolved and formed, and then you could learn how life evolved and formed here on Earth. And so there's a lot scientifically to learn about the moon still. Also, I feel like technology, with the Apollo program, technology probably wasn't there to live on the moon. Hopefully we're getting to a point where that is doable and we could actually build this moon base that NASA is working toward and continue pushing deeper into space. And so, yeah, I know I get that question a lot. Like, we've been there. Why did it take so long?
Yeah.
What's important now? But there's still just a lot to learn and do. And you can use it to advance technologies to go farther.
You listen to the Curiosity Desk on GBH. We're talking with Houston Chronicle space reporter Andrea Leinfelder about Artemis 2, which, if all things go according to plan, will be launching toward the moon later today. What are the astronauts going to be doing today and then in the 10 days that follow today if, again, everything happens according to plan?
Yeah, so their first day is actually a really busy day. So they wake up at 9:45 Eastern time. And so then they've got about a full work day before they actually launch. So, they'll be getting dressed.
For those of you who feel like you're tired after the workday today, just be thankful you don't then have to launch to the moon.
Yeah, so they reach space. It only takes 8 minutes to reach space. But once they get to space, their job's not done. They keep going. So, they have to set up the spacecraft to live in. They'll set up the seats. They'll set up the toilet. They're going to actually do a manual flying test where they will take control of Orion and test its manual capabilities. And then, after all that, they get to sleep only 4 hours because then they have to wake up, watch another engine burn, and then go back to sleep. And so it's like 17 to 19 hours of awake time before they finally get that 4-hour nap today.
And then eventually, again, if all goes according to plan, as you said, they're going to kind of slingshot around the moon. And when they get to that far side of the moon, that's when communications are blacked out, right? How long does that happen? And what happens during that period where it's just them in a vehicle with no way to talk to anybody, with the moon between them and the Earth?
Yeah. So I guess first, they will spend a day near the Earth in a high Earth orbit before going to the moon just to test the spacecraft. Take 4 days to get to the moon. And then they might fly through an eclipse that also messes with comms a little bit. That is possible. But then on the far side of the moon, we won't be able to talk to them. That is normal. That is expected. I don't think anyone's going to be nervous about it. Obviously, I think everyone's going to be really excited when they hear from the crew again as they come back around.
Sure.
But for the crew, that's the time where they'll get to see the far side of the moon, and they'll get to see potentially spots that have never been directly seen by the human eye before, right? Satellites have seen them, but astronauts, humans have not. And so I think they'll just be really excited to be looking at the moon at that time.
Can you explain what you mean by the eclipse thing there? You just kind of threw that out there. You're like, maybe they're going to fly past an eclipse. Like, what?
Yeah, this is where journalists are dangerous. I don't know enough about that yet to give you a great answer. I just know that it's happening. So sorry, I can't help more there.
That's okay. That's all right. We're talking with Houston Chronicle space reporter Andrea Leinfelder about Artemis 2. What do we know about how are we going to experience this mission from Earth? Which is to say, it's been 54 years since the Apollo missions, and so presumably technology, I'm going to guess, is maybe going to give us more access. Are we going to be able to, see what they're doing? Will there be live streams? Will we see images? And if so, how are we getting them? What's it going to be like for us here on Earth as this is happening?
Yeah, so that's actually very interesting because that's still kind of evolving. So this spacecraft will be taking, the astronauts will have their iPhone, will have, smartphones on them, so they'll be taking photos. They have nicer cameras too.
Are they going to have a signal? They'll have a signal?
No,
okay.
They get to take their own personal photos.
I see.
Selfies with friends and family.
Okay,
right?
so okay.
Yeah.
So no, okay.
That's just a new thing that they're allowed to do.
Airplane mode, spacecraft mode.
Yes, but other cameras will be taking 4K, very high definition video and photos, but we might not see them during the mission because of the difficulty of sending it back to Earth. And so it's a little unclear at the moment. I've heard both that be prepared that it's not going to be the video quality you expect these days when you're watching TV at home, right? When you're watching sports. We might not get that video quality, but then I've heard that they might make it work. So that's going to have to be a big TBD on my part. They are definitely going to be taking videos and photos, and they'll be sharing it back to Earth, but we might not see the highest quality until they return, but we'll have to see.
And how about their experience? You sort of mentioned it a little bit, but the Orion capsule, it's not that big. There's 4 of them. It's sort of a bit like you're car camping, but you can't leave the car. What is the experience going to be like for them as best as you understand it?
Yes, actually, that's how Reed Wiseman, the commander, he explained it to me as think of camping, but you can't leave your tent, right?
They're
going to eat shelf-stable food. There's no shower. You sleep in sleeping bags. So it is very similar. But it's basically the only private area is a bathroom, which is located under the floor. The rest is going to be shared all the time. So they're going to live, work, eat, sleep in this big common area. It's not, I'm sorry, I say big, but it's actually not big. They promise it's bigger microgravity because they can float around, but it's not going to be very big. And there's not going to be any privacy. One of the things that interests me the most is these astronauts will exercise. Each of them will exercise half an hour a day. And the exercise equipment, one of it's a rowing device. And so they will be rowing and pushing their bodies into the middle of the capsule while everyone else just tries to stay out of the way. So as each other astronaut is working, they're going to be hugging the windows, trying to stay out of the way. And then, they say it's really a team experience because sweat floats in microgravity. So it's going to be it's going to be a very team experience when they exercise.
Yeah, you've been covering the space industry for a number of years now. You're based in Houston, which, as we all know, is kind of one of the major centers of the space industry for us here in the United States. As you've been covering the Artemis program and everything around it, as we're closing in on launch, what are you really looking at? What is really exciting you, as somebody who knows this so well?
I'm excited, to see the people, right? I'm excited to see astronauts launch. Every time I watch astronauts launch, it is different for me. Part of you feels like you're there, part of you is worried about them. You're very excited. You're kind of celebrating for them. But I'm also excited to see where this Artemis mission goes, right? This Artemis program. Jared Isaacman is the new NASA administrator, and he has come in and he's shifted up the plans. He wants to launch rockets more often. He wants to accelerate the pace at which we land on the moon and we build this base, which, if he can pull it off, is all very exciting. Just to be able to build that muscle memory and to make it more routine to launch these missions. And NASA hates the word routine, but, make it more frequent, more regular. And so I'm just really excited to see. I also have a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old. So I'm excited to see them land on the moon, right? To see my family. I've never saw a moon landing. So I'm excited for that as well. That's currently scheduled for 2028. So we got a few more years, but I'm really excited to see NASA going to the moon and maybe even pushing farther into Mars with humans and robotic explorers.
Yeah, so, let's talk a little bit about the future of the Artemis mission. Again, presuming things go well here. This is Artemis 2. Initially, Artemis 3 was thought to be the one where we were going to actually have people landing and walking on the moon. That is no longer the case. That will be Artemis 4. Artemis 3 is going to test docking in low Earth orbit. Is that right? So you sort of sketch out, if everything works here, what's the timeline? And when you talk about this base, are we talking about a base 25 years from now, or are we talking about a base 5 years from now?
Yeah. Okay. So the timeline: Artemis 2, astronauts around the moon. Artemis 3, it will be another. It should be another crewed mission, but it's going to launch in a low Earth orbit, and it's going to dock with these human landing systems. So Blue Origin and SpaceX are basically building the landers that will take the astronauts from Orion down to the lunar surface.
And we don't
Orion
have them
can't
yet.
Land.
They are not built yet.
They're under development, yes. So They are still being developed. So the idea is that next year, Artemis 3 will launch and dock with one or both of them in low Earth orbit. Because again, you want to be able to test these systems closer to home before you put astronauts on it landing on the moon. Both companies are also going to do their own uncrewed lunar missions, so there'll be lots of tests. And then Artemis 4 would return humans to the moon in 2028. That is the current plan. We might also see Artemis 5 launch in 2028. Jared Isaacman is very, very eager to launch these more quickly. Part of the problem is it's been 3 years since Artemis 1 launched. And so you lose your muscle memory when you don't launch these rockets all the time. And so he really wants to accelerate the pace at which these rockets are launched. The moon base, it's going to start working toward it, I would say probably around 2030. We're going to start seeing steps toward it. They outlined a very aggressive mission. That they recently gave a very detailed outline of the moon mission and of the moon base and how it would be constructed over the next 10 years maybe. I don't have that number right off the top of my head, but we're not talking 25 years in the future. President Donald Trump has put in an executive order that he wants to see the first parts of the moon base on the moon by 2030. And so NASA is really working to start. It's going to be a long time. It's going to start with small robotic explorers, maybe small pressurized rovers, habitats, right? It's going to be a long time before we see an actual sci-fi moon base, but they are starting that in the coming years.
The other thing, folks who maybe even just follow a little bit what's happening in space, is this notion of going to Mars, which is also there. What, if anything, does this mission, Artemis 2 and the Artemis program, what does that have to do with whether or not we send people to Mars in, say, yours or my lifetime?
Yeah, a trip to Mars is going to be much more difficult than a trip to the moon. It takes months and months and months to get there, 9 months. And so if something were to go wrong, you don't want to be testing new equipment on Mars. You want to test on the moon first. So the moon is really like a stepping stone. It's a place where you can learn to build technology, operate technology, learn to live and work on the moon before going on to Mars. And so, this is really a stepping stone in that direction. There's still a lot of problems that need to be solved before going to Mars. One is radiation. The astronauts are exposed to a lot of radiation once they leave Earth's magnetic field. And so that could be a big problem trying to get to Mars and back. Like astronauts right now with current spacecraft designs and current technologies would exceed what NASA considers like the acceptable lifetime mission on one round trip. And so there's still a lot that needs to be solved before we go to Mars. But the moon is a great place to start building those technologies and learning how to do that.
And that starts today if all goes according to plan. We've been speaking with Houston Chronicle space reporter Andrea Leinfelder. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. It's fun chatting with you.
Just ahead, back here on Earth, a team of local scientists are trying to figure out if we can engineer our oceans to take up more CO2, in turn limiting the impact of climate change. But can they do it without forever altering the Earth's ecosystem? That's next. You're listening to The Curiosity Desk on GBH. Don't go anywhere.
Poetry Month. Over decades of writing, teaching, and translating, the three-time U.S. Poet Laureate has insisted that poetry be spoken and shared. From jazz collaborations to the Favorite Poem Project, he has spent a career bringing poems off the page and into public conversation. That and more on The Culture Show today at 2 on GBH 89.7.
Support for our programs comes from you.
And the University of Massachusetts Amherst. UMass, the state's flagship public research university, empowers students to be the future in the pursuit of progress for Massachusetts and beyond. More at umass.edu. And Rockland Trust Bank, committed to helping individuals and local businesses work towards their financial goals by providing financial advice and resources. More at rocklandtrust.com. Rockland Trust Bank, where each relationship matters. Member FDIC.
You're listening to The Curiosity Desk on GBH. I'm Edgar B. Herwick III. We are streaming live at youtube.com/GBH News. As a species, so far humans have done a pretty lousy job at reining in carbon emissions, but the climate crisis is not going anywhere. So, in response, scientists have begun to more seriously consider engineering solutions to limit CO2 or pull it out of the atmosphere. Enter the Loch Ness Project. Born out of the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institute, Loch Ness is short for locking ocean carbon in the Northeast Shelf and Slope. It all hinges on a process called ocean alkalinity enhancement, OAE for short. That's the careful distribution of sodium hydroxide into oceans to essentially create a giant sponge to suck up CO2. In August of last year, they set out to test the effectiveness of OAE and measure its impact on marine ecosystems. The results, so far, show promise. Here to dive into all of this is Adam Subhas. He's an associate scientist in the Marine Chemistry and Geochemistry Department and the lead researcher behind this Loch Ness project, the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institute. Also here is Kristin Kleisner, lead senior scientist for ocean science at the Environmental Defense Fund. Welcome to both of you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Adam, I want to start with you. Did I generally get that science right? And what else do we need to understand about what's happening here?
Yeah, in a large sense, that's right. So ocean alkalinity enhancement is one approach to remove carbon dioxide from the atmosphere and store it so it can't provoke any warming and other, ocean acidification and other impacts to our climate and Earth system. I just want to make the point that this approach isn't a silver bullet, right? It's going to be one of many different approaches that are currently getting researched, need additional research, and could get deployed in addition to really large-scale emissions reductions and an energy transition. So, just wanted to make that point.
When we talk about these chemicals in the water sort of sucking up carbon dioxide, once it does that, where does it go?
Yeah, it's a really good point. So alkalinity actually comes from a number of different sources, and it's naturally found in a whole bunch of different rocks and minerals. So it's not just sodium hydroxide as an alkalinity source, but there are many natural sources of alkalinity that could be used. Alkalinity in seawater reacts with carbon dioxide and locks it up into bicarbonate ion, which is essentially dissolved baking soda. And that would be the ultimate resting place or storage form that it would stay in for tens or even hundreds of thousands of years. So it's an incredibly durable form of carbon removal.
Gotcha. And so what are generally the results of this trial that took place off the coast of Maine in August of last year?
Yeah, so we did a study, a field study in the Wilkinson Basin area of the Gulf of Maine. We conducted a dispersal of alkalinity into the surface waters and then tracked the subsequent carbon uptake potential of that alkalinity patch and the effects on marine life. And what we were able to show is that we could actually quite accurately follow this patch, track the alkalinity movement, the amount of carbon that this patch was taking up. And promisingly, so far, we haven't been able to measure any impacts on marine life. That spans everything from, the tiny photosynthetic algae at the base of the food web all the way up to fish larvae, lobster larvae. And we also had observers for protected species as well.
Yeah, and generally, how do you know that? Like what exactly were you doing to be able to look at this and then say, no, there's no adverse effects here as far as we can see? What were you looking at?
Yeah, we were looking at all sorts of things. So just the quantity, the number of cells and the number of organisms that were living both inside the patch of alkalinity that we dispersed and outside. And we were comparing that in real time throughout the whole study. We were looking at, photosynthetic rates, cell survival, other metrics that actually have a long history of our group and other groups working with in the laboratory and in other studies to confirm that these are indeed metrics that could be used in the field to track these things.
Gotcha. All right, you're listening to the Curiosity Desk on GBH. That's Adam Subhas. We also have Kristin Kleisner. We're talking about ocean geoengineering as one potential way to address climate change. Kristin, I want to turn to you. What is the role of the Environmental Defense Fund in all of this? In the past, it seems to me that word geoengineering, maybe we can talk about that word and whether that's the right word or not, but there's a fair amount of skepticism in the past from your organization. How do you interface with all of this?
Yep, great question. So Environmental Defense Fund is, interested in what we need to do as a human race to combat climate change. And I would say first and foremost, the things that we're looking into are the rapid and enormous amount of emissions reductions that we need. And so that involves things like transitioning our energy use to renewables, first and foremost. There is the IPCC, the International Panel on Climate Change, has put out research that has shown that there will be some of these emissions, even if we were to, tomorrow shut off all emissions, there's still going to be some hard to abate sectors, and that's going to require other approaches. And one of the things, or the classes of things that we're looking at, or the world is looking at, is carbon dioxide removal. And so, like Adam said, OAE, or ocean alkalinity enhancement, is one of those methods, but there's many others on land and in the sea. Our role is looking at these as skeptics, really to say, well, how do they work? Are they effective? Are they doing what we want them to do to combat climate? But also very important, are they safe for the environment and for people? So there's a lot of research happening there. And then the other thing is, these are research projects right now, but if they were to be, deployed at scale, what does that mean for the world? What does that look like in terms of cost? And I don't just mean financial costs, but also like energy.
Cost.
Yeah,
cost
like cost.
To the environment,
like
cost to the species.
Infrastructure, everything. Yeah.
Yeah. So for you, from where you sit, what are sort of the unanswered questions that are still out there, with a project like this? What are the things you are hoping to see better answered in order to say, yeah, this seems like a viable potential solution?
Yeah, that's a great question too. I mean, I think the work that Adam and his team were doing, and first I just wanted to say, they're one of the only group right now that is a non-commercial actor that's done a field trial of this particular method. And I think that's really important because they're approaching it from the research side, the skeptic side, saying, where do we need to poke at this and understand how it works? So I think effectiveness is one of the key things that they're looking at. Does this work to draw down carbon dioxide and lock it away? And then the other side of it is, all the environmental impacts that they were looking at, which I think are a key concern for the public and everyone else out there. So our role is really in this project has been to work with Adam and his team on that public engagement and trying to explain, well, why is the research important? Why would we even want to look at this? And then what is the public concerned about, and how is that being addressed through the research?
Talk about this in particular, as this trial that you did is a research trial, but you've both kind of mentioned the idea that, you know, there are commercial operators like in this space doing this right now. And, you know, reporting says in June, a Canada-based company was working off of Nova Scotia and were like selling carbon credits, you know, related to this. Buyers included companies like Shopify, British Airways. So is this happening? Is this happening?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a voluntary carbon market that was set up in 2022, I believe, that offered, you know, purchasing of carbon credits to startup companies. So a lot of the action that we've seen on the private sector side has been through early stage startup companies who have been testing some of these technologies, and that work is being funded through this voluntary market. So the idea is you test a technology, it's kind of R&D, right? But from a startup perspective, and they'd basically be making money on selling carbon credits through deploying these technologies. So yeah, in Canada, there's one operating in Washington. There's another trial that's currently ongoing, looking at olivine, which is like a green sand that produces alkalinity off the coast of North Carolina right now. So there are a number of different things that are happening right now. Yeah, in addition to our academic trial.
When it comes to the trial that you're doing here versus what this might look like to see advantages at scale, how wide is that gap, and what are the challenges between here and there?
Yeah, so it's a huge challenge, right? So, you know, every time I start to think about the climate and start thinking about numbers in the billions of tons of carbon dioxide, right, that are getting emitted every year, it's just a huge challenge. And so our trial at most would have taken up about 48 to 50 tons of carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. And then you think about then billions of tons, right, that potentially need to get taken out of the atmosphere every year by, let's say, 2050 or 2100. It's a huge scaling that would need to happen. It's a whole new way for us, even as a society, as a species, right, to think about carbon and carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. So there's so many pieces to this, it gets overwhelming at times. But I think our approach of just, you know, taking this one step at a time, evaluating things at the smallest scale possible to answer some of these key questions, and then see if we should be moving forward. That's the approach that we've taken.
Yeah, I would add that there is research happening to understand what that scaling looks like. So there's analyses out there called techno-economic analysis. There's life cycle assessment. So those are assessments that look, you know, where you're getting the material that you're going to put in the water. Do you have to mine it? What are the transport costs?
Like,
there's
what is the carbon footprint of producing enough of this chemical and getting it there and delivering it? Like, is it possible at scale? Is it even feasible? So where does this solution sit in terms of, you know, in terms of the potential solutions out there? And what are we, you know, as you develop this, as we learn more about this, as we think about this, as you said, as one approach among potentially many, is this like we hope we never have to do it, but we need to learn more about it? Is this more of this is a potential good solution, which we're looking at, you know, 5 years or 10 years from now using? Or is this like, is this a just in case thing?
Well, let me put it this way. Alkalinity enhancement is actually just the Earth system's way that it's going to deal with extra carbon dioxide in the atmosphere over millennia, right? Over really long time scales that aren't relevant to humans. So the question really becomes, can it be sped up safely and effectively to match the scale and the speed of the climate crisis that we're in? You know, early research right now is suggesting that it could be, right? But there are all of these other questions, and you start to get these different perspectives from different sectors of society around what this means for them. Who gets paid for this, who is disadvantaged by this moving forward. I think all these societal questions are also going to be really important to keep in the front of mind, along with the science, as we continue to do this research.
Kristin, from where you sit, as this research continues, potential technique is better understood and developed, what else ought we be doing?
Well, I think we have to do the research. So where EDF is positioned right now is to help, figure out how we do that research in the safest way with guardrails around it. We want to get to the answers quicker. And we're talking about research, though, so it's not a quick thing, typically. I think Adam and team are still processing all the reams of data that they got from this project, which will help us with that understanding. But I think, continue to advance research safely and also look for, there are a lot of approaches out there. Some will be good, some won't be so good because of any one of these factors. They don't work, or they're not safe, or scaling just isn't promising. We need to figure out which are the right potential tools in the toolbox and then move those forward.
You're listening to The Curiosity Desk on GBH. We're talking with Adam, Subhas, and Kristin Kleisner about ocean geoengineering as one way to address climate change. Adam, with this research, as Kristin just said, you're still going through the data that you collected in this particular trial that you did. What is next? What are you looking for in that data that you still haven't found yet? And then what happens next?
Yeah, so with any scientific research project, we get data sets. We actually had data that we were seeing live streamed on the research vessel, right? But all of that data needs to be very carefully quality controlled, standardized, et cetera. So we're going through that process. We actually just presented a whole bunch of preliminary findings at the Ocean Sciences meeting that happened in February. But peer-reviewed publications of that data, right, are still going to take a little bit of time. So we're working on that. And then I think, addressing this question of scale, like what might this look like? What might be the things we need to take into account, both to keep up with, what the private sector is doing and how these solutions are advancing in other ways, and to address the sort of next step of what might this look like as a truly climate scale solution. I think those are some really, really interesting and important questions to start addressing now.
I feel like it's not a small percentage of people who are going to hear something like this, the idea of we're going to pour chemicals in the ocean, or hear the word geoengineering and immediately go, that's a bad idea. Like, we probably should not do that. Or just roll their eyes and say, what are you, stupid? There's no way that's going to work. Or how's that not going to make it worse? What do you say to that person whose immediate reaction, and is like, maybe not?
I'd say that as a human race, we've been doing an enormous experiment this whole time with climate change. So, not all of these approaches are going to work. And we have a lot of examples of humans geoengineering or engineering something, trying to engineer our way out of an issue only to create other issues. So I think here, you need to poke and prod this from many different angles, because there's a number of ways that it hopefully will work, and there's a number of ways that it could have impacts, and we'll have to be able to assess those trade-offs.
Really quickly, Adam?
Yeah, so the oceans have already absorbed 90% of the heat that we're putting into the atmosphere and 30% of the CO2 that's causing a massive amount of ocean acidification. So there are absolutely impacts in the ocean environment that we've caused already. And, one way to look at this is this a remediation tool, right, to help us deal with the carbon emissions and offset some of that, future acidification that could happen too. So, again, there are many ways to think about this. And I just encourage people to come at this with an open mind.
All right. We've been speaking with Adam Subhas, Associate Scientist in the Marine Chemistry and Geochemistry Department at Woods Hole Oceanographic Institute, and Kristin Kleisner, Lead Senior Scientist for Ocean Science at the Environmental Defense Fund. Thank you both.
Thank you, Edgar.
Thank you.
Just ahead, happy April Fools, everyone. What's so funny? This is the Curiosity Desk on GBH. Don't go anywhere.
Support for GBH comes from you.
And the Mass Historical Society, presenting the exhibition 1776, Declaring Independence, with revolutionary artifacts, letters, and more. Open March 6th through December 19th. More at masshist.org. And the Office of the Massachusetts State Treasurer. The Unclaimed Property Division is holding unclaimed funds. New properties are added often. To see if you have unclaimed money, you can visit findmassmoney.gov.
You're listening to the Curiosity Desk on GBH 89.7 and live streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Happy April to all you fools out there. And of course, it is April Fool's Day, so we couldn't help but get a little bit curious about humor and laughter. Sometimes we like to ask the big, broad, simple questions here, such as, why do we laugh? How does our species benefit from this kind of weird physical response to something funny? What exactly is funny anyway? Well, here to help us answer some of those questions and more, we're joined via Zoom by Dr. Natalie Dattilo. She's a psychologist and instructor at Harvard Medical School. Dr. Natalie, thank you for making some time and being with us here on the Curiosity Desk.
Thank you so much for having me. I love being here.
Okay, Dr. Natalie, why do we laugh?
Such a great question. Laughter is the physiological response to humor.
Okay.
Just like crying is a physiological response to sadness, and sweating is a physiological response to heat. So it's built into the system as a way to maintain balance, or what we call homeostasis. So it allows us to return to some sort of baseline after it's been, activated.
And when you say sort of physiological response, I mean, it's the kind of thing where, like, you can stifle laughter or whatever, but it is kind of like we don't have to think about it to do it. It's like a kind of instinctual thing. It just sort of happens. Is that right?
That's right. Try to stop it. If you've tried to stop it, sometimes that actually can
that makes it worse. Yeah.
But it's an inborn instinct, and it serves a really important purpose. As part of the survival of our species.
Do we have
It's an involuntary response. And I think that's an important aspect.
So, and this involuntary response, sort of like laughter, is it kind of, has it always been thus? Like, is it the same across culture? I mean, obviously, like, different cultures may have, sort of different expectations in terms of when it's okay to laugh or what it's okay to laugh at. But when we talk about that involuntary piece of it, is it like, have humans essentially laughed the same way for thousands of years? And do we laugh the same way across all of these different cultures and places on the planet? Like, is it truly like a all humans laugh kind of thing and have forever?
All humans laugh. And I have no idea what laughter looked or sounded like in our ancestors. I would imagine it had similar features, in that there's usually an exhale. There's like a forced exhale when you laugh. If you try to laugh, it's like you're breathing out. And that's one of the ways in which it activates the nervous system or calms the nervous system. So I imagine it sounded something like that across cultures and across time. But I can't be sure, and I don't think there's any recordings of our ancient ancestors.
Yeah, sad. You're listening to the Curiosity Desk. We're talking about why we laugh with Harvard Medical School psychologist Dr. Natalie Dattilo. So what are the benefits of laughter? Obviously, if it's stuck around in humans for as long as it has, if it's still something that we do, we're deriving some benefit of it. What are the benefits of laughing?
We think about the benefits falling into like three categories. One is biological, another psychological, and social.
Okay.
So the biological benefits that we know, it helps with the perception of pain. It helps reduce our perception of pain. It helps to lower cortisol, which is that pesky stress hormone we're all familiar with. And it lowers blood pressure. So those are all really good things. It's good for our health. It's also good for our mental health. Psychologically speaking, it actually signals safety. So our brain hears laughter. And it signals to us that we're safe, that there's no threat necessarily detected in the environment. And socially, for the same reason, it builds trust and cohesion with groups.
Okay. Why do we find some things funny? Why do certain things make us laugh? And I guess this is one where there probably is a little bit more variability across different groups. But generally speaking, like, what makes something funny?
Also a really good question. So humor is in the eye of the beholder.
Yeah.
So, something that one person might find funny, another person might not find so funny. But generally speaking, what we find funny is something that violates an expectation that we have in a non-harmful way.
Right.
So our brain is constantly scanning the environment to make predictions about what comes next. And things that we tend to find funny are things that are unexpected, or where things are going in this direction, all of a sudden they sort of spin off in this direction, and the brain loves that. I think that's really, that's a funny thing to
Brain's like, nice, little surprise. I'll take some surprise.
So it's like a surprise. Yeah. It's like a funny surprise. So that's typically, and so like a comic will be doing a routine and they're just telling a story, and then all of a sudden they throw this other piece in and you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't even see that coming. That's hilarious.
Yeah. You listen to Curiosity Desk. We're talking about the psychology of laughter with Harvard Medical School psychologist, Dr. Natalie Dattilo. How does laughter generally change as we age? Which is to say, I think a lot of people at some point get, in their lives go, I just don't laugh as much as I used to. Or, we think of kids as just being bubbling over with laughter at everything and anything. And, as adults, we can sometimes get quite serious. Is that a natural sort of development, or is that just, does it have to be that way?
Well, it is true. I once read that children laugh around 300 times a day.
That is awesome.
And adults laugh like around 17 times a day. And I actually think that's a little high for most of the adults that I know.
Yeah.
So you
need to find some more fun adults to hang out with, Dr. Natalie. Right. You're like 17 times a day. That is pretty high. People do not laugh that much.
Pretty high. I feel like I've laughed several times so far today, but I don't know if I'm up to 17 yet. I lost count. But
how do you in your work, how does laughter come into this? Like what do you do in your work, and laughter is a component of that? How is that a component of what you do?
Well, I think it follows up on the question that you asked about adults and how serious we get, and how life can get so difficult and stressful, and the things that are happening around us can cause us to have concerns and worries. And as a clinical psychologist, I work with individuals who are struggling with things like anxiety or things like depression. And one of the struggling with those things is we lose the ability to feel pleasure. It's a main symptom of depression, something called anhedonia, which is this inability to anticipate reward or feel pleasure. And it's both a cause and a consequence of the condition. So it's kind of a chicken and egg. We're not really sure which comes first, but it's definitely a very problematic symptom. And one of the ways that we can begin to treat that is by introducing pleasure or laughter or delight or joy, even in small doses, just to remind the brain what it feels like to feel good. If it's been a while, it's almost like flexing a muscle. And so we'll plan activities around creating opportunities to feel good. And I think laughter is one of the best, it's the fastest, it's one of the most effective, like fast release intervention that we have.
So I'm hearing you sort of say like, hey, if you haven't been laughing that much, you can learn to laugh again. But on the other hand, you sort of talk about the fact that one of the chief components of like humor and why we laugh is there's this little bit of surprise in there, right? It's like that thing of like, you can't tickle yourself because you know it's coming. So it doesn't, so you're like not getting tickled, right? I mean, it sounds like you're saying we can sort of decide, hey, I want to laugh more. How do you go about doing that? How do we put ourselves in a position to laugh more?
You can definitely do that. And laughter doesn't always have to be like spontaneous. Spontaneous and sort of genuine laughter is laughter that comes, that involuntary laughter kind of reflex. But forced laughter has a similar effect.
It
So
does?
Yes, yeah.
Fake laughing? Like if I'm just like, I'm going to make myself laugh. All those the good things, the good things that happen in my body when I spontaneously laugh is happening as well?
Yes, you can almost trick your brain into, it's sort of simulated laughter, which kind of feels forced, and that's what makes it feel a little funny. But when you force yourself to laugh, it's also funny. And then you kind of react to the laughing that you're doing.
Because you're like very serious and you're like, I'm going to make myself laugh. And then you can picture how ridiculous you look making yourself laugh. And then you start to genuinely laugh. This is is this the exercise? This is how you do it?
That is part of it. And then it sort of takes over from there.
Really?
Yeah. So like laughter yoga, it's not exactly the same concept, but it's very, very close. It's basically designed to produce those benefits. But that laughter is typically simulated laughter, at least at first.
That was Dr. Natalie Dattilo, a psychologist and instructor at Harvard Medical School. Phyllis on YouTube asks, do other primates like chimps laugh? We'll put that on the pile of curiosity questions. If you have a curiosity question, head to our landing page on gbh.org and ask away. Right now, this is not a joke. I believe I am joined by the one and only Jared Bowen on this April Fool's Day. Hello, Jared.
Hey, Edgar. Great to see you.
Great to see you. You got big jokes on the show?
Well, I don't know about that. We'll work our way through them. But we're starting off with National Poetry Month. Certainly not a joke. And also not a joke that we have the former U.S. Poet Laureate Robert Pinsky here.
Oh, amazing.
He'll be talking about his new poem and his new poetry and music, which people can experience at the Regatta Bar soon. We'll talk to Chef Jason Santos, of course, who has many fabulous restaurants in and around Boston. He has a new cookbook, Citrus and Salt, based on his Mexican cooking.
Yum.
And Joyce Kulhawik is here to give us the lowdown on all the movies and shows to see right now, from Ryan Gosling and Project Hail Mary to Shrinking to Massachusetts' own, this is funny, Chris Fleming getting his first HBO special.
Excellent. So maybe not jokes, but definitely some smiles, and it sounds like a great show. That is Jared Bowen and The Culture Show. Always terrific and coming at you in about a minute and a half, so don't go anywhere. As for us, that is it for now. The Curiosity Desk is produced by Aidan Connolly, Rachel Armani, Olivia Corcio, Hannah Loss, and Nicole Garcia. Patty Daniels always has the last laugh. Our engineer today is John LeClaw Parker. Special thanks to Andrew Massawa and Bradley Lewis. We will be right back here in 23 short hours on GBH 89.7 and streaming on YouTube. If that's too far away, check out our new daily podcast version of the show, available wherever you get your podcasts. Until next time, I'm Edgar B. Herwick III. Stay curious out there.
What's trending? What's interesting? What's going on around town? We're talking all things arts and culture on The Culture Show, next on GBH 89.7.
Funding for our programs comes from you and Porter Square Books, hosting Life of Pi author Jan Martel for his new novel, Son of Nobody, a retelling of the Trojan War from the perspective of two commoners. April 3rd, info at portersquarebooks.com.
As climate change continues to reshape the Earth, what kind of world will we live in tomorrow? Discover the surprises our planet has in store and learn about Our New World tonight at 10 on GBH2.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you?
Good afternoon. With the latest from the GBH Culture Show news desk, I'm Henry Santoro. Fans of the 1980s superstar performer Thomas Dolby are shocked, stunned, and thrilled that he's coming back to the stage. And
Talk about his cookbook, Simple Fancy. Now, the Hell's Kitchen and Bar Rescue alum is back with Citrus and Salt, a new cookbook that opens up the bold, bright, high-impact flavor world of his restaurant to the rest of us. Jason Santos, welcome back to The Culture Show. It's great to see you again.
Thanks for having me.
And your book is bright pink, just like your restaurant.
Just like the restaurant. Big, bold, and obnoxious in a good way.
So how did this come to the fore? Let's talk a little bit about the restaurant, which I'm so intrigued by. It's such gorgeous design there. As you say, it's bold, it's big, it's over the top, all intentional. And this is great to mix in the Mexican flavors with.
Yeah, I mean, so buttermilk and bourbon is kind of like food's slightly heavier. It's bourbon. It's like a darker New Orleans, and I wanted to just do the polar opposite. So this is like bright, airy, kind of Baja inspired, very feminine. You know, the drinks are over the top, colorful, and just when I had my space on Berkeley Street, our lease was up, so we had to move. So we moved to Fort Point, and I would notice everybody with their cameras out taking pictures and stuff. And I said, well, you know, never did I wake up saying I wanted to open a pink restaurant, but here we are, you know. And I just made sure that we give them what they want. It's not about me. So this place is, you know, got lots of bling and just colorful and pink and, you know, just really vibey, beachy kind of feel and light. And that's what the food is all about.
Well, tell me about going into Mexican culture and understanding the food. As you write in the book, you went to Mexico, you ate your way through to the extent possible through Mexico.
I did. Ironically, you know, Mexican food, I do love it, but I never woke up with this, you know, itch to be. I just thought that in Boston there was a lack of it, so I felt like I wanted to sort of fill that gap. So it was definitely a business move on my point, but, you know, once I started traveling Mexico and eating all around the country, I realized, you know, the food is incredible here, and we're trying to bring back authentic flavors. And so we opened Citrus and Salt. It's been in Back Bay for 6 years. We're in the Seaport for 2 more years. So we're going on 8 years, and it's been wildly successful. I'm opening a second Citrus and Salt in Burlington, Mass. We actually start construction Monday, and that'll open this summer. And that's going to be, you know, same thing we have, but even bigger. You know, bar out in the patio, big 240-seat restaurant. So very exciting.
And how would you describe the range of, so if you're eating your way through Mexico, how do you describe what you brought back here to Boston?
So I get bored very easy, and I have blue hair, so I don't sort of take myself that seriously, but I take the business very seriously. And I just wanted to bring back the flavors, but not necessarily the authenticity as far as the technique. So if you're eating our street corn, which we crush with flaming hot Cheetos, it might sound a little bit kitschy, but really when you are in Mexico City and you're eating street corn, it's mayonnaise, it's, you know, cotija, and you get that heat. So we're just replacing it with something that's a little bit more exciting.
I was so struck by the introduction of Cheetos there. How do you arrive at something like that? Do I want to just break out and do something so unconventional that'll make people stop and think for a moment about what they're eating? How does that
I mean, to be honest, the street corn, it was, you know, I don't want to say it was a joke by any means, because it's our number one seller, you know, and here we are years later. But I just wanted to do something fun. We ran it for a special. We sold a ton of it, and we just, you know, the rest is history. It's smoked mayonnaise. It's got cotija cheese. We grind the Cheetos, so it's like a spicy, crunchy dust, and then fresh lime on top, and it's incredible. We grill the corn. We soak it in milk and butter, so it's just got tons of flavor.
Speaking of staying with chips for a moment, you have a great dish with a bag of Fritos too. Tell us about that you share all these recipes in the book.
Yeah, so the Fritos is not, we don't serve that at the restaurant, but I just love walking tacos, and I love everything that's about a good nacho. And so if you open a bag of Fritos and you put everything on top, you can walk around with a spoon and just eat the Fritos. So it's just a fun recipe that's geared more towards the home cook.
And you also remarked that it's this tradition in America, too, to have all of these influences, because we're not really sure where that bag of walking tacos started, but there's always been this history, decades of innovation that just continues.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely some recipes that are super authentic, but we take a lot of creative liberty in what we do. I mean, you know, we're in New England. We have to sort of pay homage to the area we're in. So yes, the flavors are very traditional, but the presentation, the technique, and the ingredients are definitely a little bit more adventurous.
You said you spent 6 months perfecting guacamole.
Yes.
Which I find is really difficult to find a good one. I don't know why that is. Even if you go to somebody's home and it's their signature thing for a Super Bowl game or something, not everybody quite gets it right. What did you do during that 6 months of innovation?
I mean, you know, just like the biscuits of buttermilk. I mean, what's this Irish guy from Burlington know about Mexican food, you know? And rightfully so. I feel like I've had a lot of food and a lot of Mexican food that's just mediocre at best. And I think, guacamole, every table gets one in any restaurant of any caliber. So I wanted to make sure it was the best guacamole. And as a chef, you certainly think that you make the best of everything, but we can also be realistic, and there's always better somewhere. But I'll tell you, I still have yet to have a better guacamole.
What would you describe for people who are going to buy your book that sets you apart? What did you find in that 6 months?
I just think it's about the food. I think, we just try to be approachable. I think the difference between a home cook and a chef is a little bit of finesse in the sense of technique, but it's really about just being creative and trying different things. I mean, like I said, there are recipes in there that are super authentic birria tacos with the consomme, and then there's, some recipes in there that are kind of Mexican flavored, but, Boston based.
How do you describe where you are in the hot factor? I mean, do you have to get hot and spicy just for the sake of getting spicy?
No, I think all our food is very calculated. I think some things lend itself to heat, and some things, we're not just jamming chilies into something just because we can. So we are a little bit more controlled where we put the heat. Not everybody loves heat, but if it calls for heat, then we put it. And obviously, at any point, at any time, you can add jalapenos on top and garnish it, or throw some hot sauce. So you create your own adventure.
I'm speaking with Jason Santos about his new cookbook, Citrus and Salt, named after his restaurant and soon to be ×2 of the same name. If you're looking at cheeseburger empanadas, how does that happen?
Yeah, who doesn't love a good cheeseburger? And again, if you're trying to sell your book to New England, you can't be so authentic that it turns people off. So empanadas are everywhere. There's every country in South America has their own version, and Mexican empanadas are masa dough based, which is like what they use to make tortillas. And we've done everything from blue crab and mascarpone to bacon cheeseburger to shrimp. It's a vessel for putting something really delicious inside.
So that's a staple. Another one, of course, would be nachos. Another thing, everybody has their recipe. What do you suggest in your cookbook, and where do you take us?
So we don't do nachos. What I try not to do is the obvious, like the things that are expected. Like we don't do burritos. You're not going to get rice and beans and that whole, you go to a place and it comes with the rice and beans and the cheese on top. So we do something that we are called chilaquiles, which are basically tortillas that are tossed in a red chili. You can also make them green chili. And it has cool garnishes, so it is very similar to a nacho, but slightly more upscale, a little bit more refined.
What's your process for knowing you've got it? Is it your family? Is it the people at the restaurant? How much do you rely simply on your own palate?
Yeah, it's not about me anymore. When I was a young cook and I had a little chip on my shoulder, I cooked for me and I wanted these dishes on the menu. And I've learned very quickly and very humbly that it's not about me. I could make the best food in the world, but if the people don't like it, then we have no business. So I cook for everybody. We listen to our guests. We talk, friends, family. What do you want to see? What do you like? What works? What doesn't work? I'm close with the staff. We meet every week and we just try to figure it out. And Sarah Heimreed, which is my beverage director and my co-author in the book, her cocktails are so over the top, and I just think it really polishes this restaurant and makes it very unique to Boston.
Well, now that you brought up cocktails, let's go to cocktail culture for a moment. Especially, let's start with your titles. This is fitting with the rest of the restaurant, with the color and the bling, all those moments that people can really enjoy. But the cocktails have really great names too.
Yeah, for me, gone are the days. Classic cocktails definitely have their place, and I love a good dirty martini. But you have so much fresh fruit and different purees and garnishes and dragon fruit and prickly pear. So we just take the drinks and we make them, we garnish them, we come up with fun names, and it lets people just sort of remember them a little bit more. It's about a popularity contest on the menu, and the things that are popular sell better, and we just give them what they want.
How do you spice up a margarita?
For me, it's all about the sour mix. I've had some real bad margaritas that will give you, heartburn for days because it's just acid and sugar. But we make our own sour mix in-house, and we use egg whites in, so when you shake it, it gets really frothy. Fresh lime juice, lemon juice, and just a touch of sugar. And just, quality ingredients go a really, really long way when it comes to a cocktail.
You have a whole section here too about desserts. Admit that you have a sweet tooth.
I have a very, very big sweet tooth. In fact, as of late, I will go for sweet over savory at this point.
Really?
So, but full transparency, I'm a horrible baker. I could not bake a cookie on command if you paid me. So when I got to the dessert section, it took me longer to write that because I had to really make sure I tested every single recipe myself. I wrote every single word in this book myself, and I just wanted to make sure that for someone who can't do desserts like myself, I wanted to make sure if we did the few recipes we picked are very approachable at home and easy and delicious.
I think I know the answer to this, but why is baking so different from cooking?
I mean, for me, I have the attention span of a goldfish. So, when you're cooking, it's with baking, it's so precise, and you really can't make too many mistakes. And I'm not interested in that kind of cooking. I like to taste by flavor and texture, and taste as you go. And baking is much more calculated than I'll ever be.
So, what's your go-to dessert, either in the cookbook or in your restaurant?
So, in the cookbook, my daughter and I, we make these blueberry madeleines, but instead, which is obviously not Mexican, but we use masa, which is what you use to make tortillas. So it's got that tortilla-y kind of toasty cornbread flavor with fresh blueberries, and they're really fun and delicious and handheld and just scratch that edge.
I know I'm doing a little bit of careening around here, but I also love the section of your cookbook that's devoted to brunches basically built for hangovers.
Yeah, I mean, let's be honest, like most people go out, they're either hungover or they're going out drinking on brunch. And brunch has become huge in all my restaurants. And so we just do a really cool brunch, and we certainly Americanize it to a point. We have French toast with great Mexican toppings like coconut and gooseberries and stuff like that. But brunch is just such an important part in Boston. I mean, there's so many great restaurants that do great brunches, and I just wanted to sort of pay homage to that in this book.
Has that changed over the course of your being a restaurateur, the appetite, for, as it were, for brunch?
I mean, the appetite for booze at brunch has definitely changed. I mean, that's gone up, exponentially. But no, I think Sunday brunches are classic. We even started doing brunches on Saturdays because they've become so busy on Sundays that we carried it over to Saturdays.
Your red cornmeal pancakes look really fat. By the way, all the photography in your book is extraordinary, but they look particularly good. Is this more of a traditional Mexican way into Mexican food that you create here?
No, not at all. It's 100%. I mean, it's a pancake, but again, that's what I like to do with food. I like to take things that everybody knows and sort of force it in a good way to be Mexican. So instead of a traditional flour-based pancake, we use red cornmeal. So it's like a bright red pancake. It almost looks like a red velvet pancake. And then we do different toppings. We'll do dulce de leche whipped cream and whipped mascarpone with piloncillo sugar and stuff. And so, when you're eating it, it's very approachable in the sense that everybody's had a pancake before, but you get that little nuance of Mexican flavors that I think is great.
And whereas a lot of people will judge a restaurant by their burger, I tend to just judge it, if it's available, by their breakfast sandwich. Tell me about yours.
So we do a lot of different stuff, and we're constantly evolving. We do breakfast tacos. We do a great torta, which is not in the restaurant, but it's in the book. But it's beautiful bread, which is obviously the most important part of a sandwich, and chorizo and potato crushed with cotija cheese and creme fraiche and chipotle. And it's, for me, like a taco or a good torta is just, again, a vehicle for amazing toppings. And you start with really good product, you're most likely going to end with a very good product.
So the restaurant you're building in Braintree, will it be aesthetically, is it going to be similar to what's in Boston, or do you just branch out again?
So it's going to be like Citrus 2.0. It's bigger, it's bolder, it's pinker. We're building a bar in the patio. We're going to have swings on the patio. It's going to be, I think the restaurant business has evolved where before it was about, let's talk about the chef and the tasting menu and where'd the cow come from and what the cow's name is. And now it's about sort of dinner and a show. It's about Instagram and social media and getting that picture. So we do all that, and we hopefully get everybody in the door, and we hook them on the food and service.
It's interesting because I think even in the last segment too with Robert Pinsky, we were talking about feeling as it relates to everything else. And have you begun to realize that, we've always paired wine or cocktails with food, and what that experience is like? Do you find there is something that goes together when you have a particular design aesthetic and people are coming in?
I sort of joke, but we're in the reaction business. We're trying to create a reaction. If you get your food put in front of you and you don't pull out your phone to take a picture, we've failed. You get a great cocktail in front of you that's smoking with liquid nitrogen and you're not giggling about it, like we failed. So we are trying to create a reaction, and that's what we're doing.
A couple quick final questions for you, just to go back as people are preparing their own. But you have a few recipes or sections on cheese too, and how, of course, we so associate Mexican food with cheese. What's your guidance there?
Again, I have no guidance. Like cooking, and there's no taco police are going to come to your house if you choose a different cheese. But there's certain cheeses that are indigenous to Mexico: asadero cheese, Oaxacan cheese, cotija, queso fresco. So I love all those, but they're also very similar to, like cotija is very similar to Romano. Some people probably couldn't even tell the difference. So we stay authentic with the cheeses, but again, we take creative liberty and we just have fun with our food. That's all about fun. The world's kind of going crazy, and just want people to come in, have a good time, couple dozen drinks, and go home.
Cinco de Mayo, what's going to happen that day?
It's a bloodbath at Citrus and Salt, I assure you.
Jason Santos, you're hilarious. Always great to have you on the show. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Jason Santos is a chef, restaurateur, cookbook author, and television personality. He's the owner and executive chef of Buttermilk and Bourbon, Citrus and Salt, and Butterbird. His new cookbook is Citrus and Salt Coastal Mexican Fare from Boston's hottest restaurant. Again, thank you. Coming up, stage and screen time with Joyce Kulhawik. She joins us with her reviews, including Ryan Gosling in Project Hail Mary, the return of the Harrison Ford comedy Shrinking, and Massachusetts native Chris Fleming's first HBO special. She's next on The Culture Show. Stay with us.
For decades now, the Austrian capital, Vienna, has strived for gender equality in urban development planning.
We have to be aware that different people have different needs, and to guarantee their safety, to guarantee their good education, to their economic development.
But many of those initiatives are facing backlash from the political right. That's next time on The World.
This afternoon at 3, here on GBH News 89.7.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you.
And Cambridge School of Culinary Arts in Porter Square, offering private cooking events for your next team-building activity, family reunion, birthday party, or night out. You can learn more at cambridgeculinary.com. And Safety Insurance, offering auto insurance policies designed to help for when the worst happens. You can ask an independent agent about safety insurance. Safety Insurance will help you manage life's storms.
And Porter Square Books, hosting Life of Pi author Jan Martel for his new novel, Son of Nobody, a retelling of the Trojan War from the perspective of two commoners. April 3rd, info at portersquarebooks.com.
From your neighborhood to your newsfeed, GBH News is your trusted source for the news that matters to you. Find us wherever you are at GBH News and always at GBH 89.7. GBH News, what matters to you.
I'm Jared Bowen. This is The Culture Show, live on 89.7 from the Boston Public Library and streaming on the GBH News YouTube channel. It's time for Stage and Screen with Joyce Kulhawik, a roundup of reviews, previews, and recommendations from Ryan Gosling's new film, Project Hail Mary, a big screen space odyssey with a screwball streak, to the new play Angry, Raucous, and Shamelessly Gorgeous at Lyric Stage, a tart backstage comedy of legacy, rivalry, and old wounds. Joyce Kulhawik is a Culture Show contributor, an Emmy Award-winning arts and entertainment reporter, and president of the Boston Theater Critics Association. You can find her reviews on joyceschoices.com. Welcome back. Always great to see you.
Thank you. Always great to be here.
Let's start at the movies. And one everybody seems to be going to. I haven't had the chance to get there yet, but this is Project Hail Mary with Ryan Gosling. I can already tell by your face that I have missed out.
This is a work of great delight. I'm not going to say a work of genius, but great delight. And of course, I, like so many people, would see Ryan Gosling in anything, not just because he is devastatingly attractive, but because he is really extraordinarily talented. The guy can play anything, from a nerd to a gangster to an outlaw to a slick finance. Yes, to Ken, to a slick finance bro. And here he plays an 8th grade high school teacher who of science, who's been sort of drummed out of the scientific world. He also has a PhD in molecular biology in his back pocket. But I guess he's floated some rather radical ideas about life being able to exist without water. And so he's been kind of laughed out of the business, and he's teaching. But he doesn't play this like a renegade. He plays this like a really humble guy who loves teaching, and he's quiet and lovely, and finds himself leading a team into outer space to track down a substance that's destroying the sun and a few other things. So, and on the journey, he meets a friend. So that's the plot in a nutshell.
And I think we have a clip from Project Hail Mary. Before I ask you more about this, let's go to our clip.
The sun is dying.
You are the only scientist who might know what this says.
I'm just a teacher at Grover Cleveland Middle.
You have a doctorate in molecular biology. I need you to come with us. This is Project Hail Mary. The sun is not the only star dying. Every star was infected by its neighbor except one.
Why?
We don't know. Which is why we build a ship to go there and find out. If we do nothing, everything on this planet will go extinct.
You'll find a solution.
You are my solution.
That was Ryan Gosling and Sandra Hüller.
Yeah, Anatomy of a Fall, wonderful German
was extraordinary
actress.
in that.
She has a fabulous karaoke scene where she sings that really just brings the house down and gets to the core of why this film is so appealing. It's got a lot of heart. It's got a lot of humor. It's got a lot of soul, and it allows you to forgive all the stuff that is so highly improbable. I mean, I'd love to see this with a molecular biologist or a physicist because they'd be laughing their, pants off. But he's able to somehow fly a spaceship and create a language and do all of these things that he shouldn't be able to do.
So they're flights of fancy, basically, is what you're saying.
Flights of fancy, well
which
said.
sounds so nice right now because we're so used to seeing these films come down the pike about the end of the world and anybody who's going into space at this point, and it ends in some grim circumstances.
Yeah.
But this sounds, and we should mention that it's based on the 2021 novel by Andy Weir, but that this is anything but.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Andy Weir, the novel, and also Drew Goddard, they both collaborated on this screenplay, and it's the same team behind The Martian. So what was more humane and uplifting than that film? And with those touches of humor, which Gosling handles so well, it really is a lovely, lovely film, and it's probably one of the few things that's out there now at this. We're in the doldrums of the movie release season because we've just passed the Oscars, etc. But this
and
is
some
really...
of us are still recovering from Wuthering Heights.
Yeah, I still am. Yes, I still am. But it's a big-hearted, entertaining film, and I'm wholly recommending it to anybody. Oh, and the structure of this film. I should say something about that because it starts at the end. It works its way back to the beginning. And then it meets someplace in the middle. It sort of folds in on itself. And it's in that moment where the beginning is right up against the end that we understand really what the message, for lack of a better word, of this film really is about. It sort of throws his choice to go into a really kind of interesting relief. So the way it's structured is wonderful and unusual and holds you there. And it's also beautiful to look at.
All right, I can't miss from Joyce. That's Project Hail Mary. Well, I want to move to Paradise because in a way, in my reading of the two pieces, they sounded a little bit similar in terms of subject matter. I just finished watching season 1 of Paradise, so we can't give spoilers away from season 2, and I know the season 2 finale
You wrote me about that, and I thought, okay.
Yeah, for our listening audience, I wrote Joyce. I said, do not talk about, do not tell me what happens in season 2.
We won't. I've watched the whole thing up as far as I can go, and you like it?
I really like it. I find it very, very interesting, but we also have this scenario where the planet has been reduced. I'll let you explain it more. So that's why I was seeing the link between the Ryan Gosling film and Paradise, which is streaming on Hulu.
Wholly different tone, though. Forgive me, I just hit my mic. But wholly different tone. This is deeply serious, and it's dealing with apocalyptic things on two fronts. The president, and you find this out right away. I'm not giving anything away. I hate to give away spoilers because I never want a film spoiled for me or anything. But the president is assassinated. He's played by James Marsden. And his security guard, the head of security, is played by the extraordinary Sterling K. Brown, and it's Dan Fogelman, who he teamed with in This Is Us, who's written the script here, or directed here. So Sterling K. Brown is hot on the trail of trying to figure out the assassination. Simultaneously, there's a huge apocalypse that's happened, and much of the world's human race has been sequestered inside a dome. That's all we're going to say at the end
built
of Act
into
1.
A mountain in I'll say a little bit more.
Yeah.
Built into a mountain in Colorado, which makes it really tantalizing because if you fly over this country, you think, what is down there? And we know that missile silos and whatnot have been built down there. So I found this to be an incredibly interesting concept for that reason alone, that part of it does seem a little bit realistic.
Oh, yeah. I mean, well, that's the thing about the writing here. I mean, even though these are incredibly extreme circumstances, the writing is crafted in such a way that you can wholly believe in these characters who are all developed. They all have families. There are power struggles. They have to find their way through these tribulations in ways that we can identify with. So it's deeply moving. Extraordinary cast. I want to mention Shailene Woodley is in this. Julianne Nicholson, who...
Massachusetts' own.
You got it. Julianne Nicholson. Gives a haunting performance here. So the cast is first rate. So is the writing.
I want to talk about one more element of this, which is the existential nature that we're confronted with when the end of the world happens, and you are among the few to continue on in this ridiculous life. It's called paradise because it's this community, this utopian-looking community that looks like any town USA where the sun is always shining.
A little
and
Truman
birds are,
Show. Yeah,
exactly. But here's a clip from season 1 of Paradise, where the president, Cal Bradford, played by James Marsden, is getting briefed on the global devastation taking place after a supervolcano erupted under the Antarctic ice shield.
I want to know. I mean, I know it's bad, but honestly, is this it? Is it? Half the world leaders we're talking to say it's the end of the world, the others don't. The Tories in England say the volcano's too far away for them to be affected by it, and they live on a f***ing island.
It will most certainly affect them, sir. We need to make the call.
Hey, where are my nerds? Scientists, come on, step 2. You said we'd have warning. Days or weeks if this was the real thing. What the f*** happened?
So again, this is very plausible. We talk about climate change and how rapidly things are changing, hopefully never that rapidly in our lifetime. But Dan Fogelman, This Is Us, he brings us into lives. He upends situations that we take for granted throughout a series here and there and everywhere. But I was struck by what the show forces us to ask about ourselves and how we would live in these circumstances and why we would live in these circumstances.
Yeah, exactly. I think you make an excellent point, Jared, that this doesn't, as crazy as this seems, as over the top as this is, it doesn't seem that far removed from what might actually happen, and that we all haven't in some way contemplated happening and may already be sort of preparing ourselves for. And then what do we do with all our stuff? How would we react? Where do we place ourselves? I sort of feel like we're on the edge of this every day. Every day.
Well, this is a good time to move to something a little lighter, also streaming. This is Shrinking, and this is a show that is just entering its new season on Apple TV. Again, I've watched all seasons up to this one. I'm just like Callie Crossley. I like to wait till everything is out and then I'll binge the entire thing. But I will tell you, here's my quick review.
Yeah. What are we talking about? Oh, Shrinking.
Shrinking is the only show that makes me laugh out loud. I think this show is incredibly funny. All right, you can pick it up from here.
I love Shrinking. And initially, I wasn't necessarily sold on Shrinking. It's a bunch of psychiatrists and their families who all live in this idyllic neighborhood and pop in and out of each other's gorgeously appointed homes all the time. They apparently, I don't know, their work schedules must be extraordinarily flexible, right? So I thought, this isn't real. This can't happen. And they all have these extraordinary one-liners that are laugh lines. But it deals with some really serious issues, and they deal with it in a really profoundly emotional and moving way so that you get the laughs. But underneath, it's got a lot on its mind about death and disease and old age and infidelity and kids leaving home for college and accidents that can happen. So the tone is really genius, the way it rides that wave from comedy to drama. It makes you cry.
Well, case in point, and the standout here is Harrison Ford.
Yeah.
I'm not sure we've talked about it. He's a psychiatrist in this show, and he's part of a practice, so that's where a lot of them come to play when they are at work, because you're right, a lot of times they're at work and they're going to lunch trucks.
All 6 of them show up no matter where they are.
But here's a bit from season 2 of Shrinking when Dr. Paul Rhodes, a senior therapist with Parkinson's, played by Harrison Ford, complains about Gen Z attitudes to Jimmy, a therapist and grieving widower, played by Jason Segel.
Doesn't anybody in this country have any pride in their job anymore? You having a good morning, Paul? This kid named Braden fucked up my bagel order. And when I told him that he used the wrong cream cheese, he just said, "My bad."
Was it a blowy offy, "my bad," or was it more like, "not bad"?
The second. Who gives a shit?
I have a teenager. That's the sincerest form of apology from a young person.
Seriously?
It's hilarious to watch Harrison Ford in this. I mean, he is somebody who has just, we take for granted everything he has always done of a more serious nature, of course, Indiana Jones and Star Wars, and he shines in comedy.
Oh, he's incredible. He was nominated for an Emmy Award, I believe, for this, but he's sort of crusty in that way that you want to see Harrison Ford be crusty, and he's funny and lovable, and Jason Segel is a wonderful foil for him. Harrison Ford always gets the better of him, and we've got to mention Jessica Williams, who's another a psychiatrist in this group. You know, sometimes the lines come out as too facile, and that's my one little objection, and then all of a sudden they turn a corner and they're into something really deep and moving. And they get it right. They get the profound wisdom right. And it's beautifully done. So I have to say I'm a huge fan of Shrinking. I've watched every episode, and I think it's been renewed. It's going to go on and on. And the rest of the cast, Kobe Smulders, Luke Tenney, Damon Wayans Jr., Michael J. Fox is a guest star, Jeff Daniels is a guest star. This cast, first rate, and the script knows how to use them. They're all fully developed, very vivid characters.
Not only is it the only show that makes me laugh out loud, but it's also, I think, the best ensemble in television on streaming right now. I'm speaking with Joyce Kulhawik. We're going over the latest on screen and stage. Speaking of which, let's go to a production that recently opened in Boston. This is the Lyric Stage Company's Angry, Raucous, and Shamelessly Gorgeous.
Okay. Well, I wasn't a big fan. I have to honestly tell you, I wasn't a big fan. It's at the Lyric Stage through April 12th. It's about an iconic theater star played by Patrice Jean-Baptiste, who made her name playing all of August Wilson's monologues in the nude back in the day, all right? And she wants to come back to this Women's Theater Festival and recap the role. But her team has decided that it's outdated and she's outdated, and they've hired a young person to fill in and take over this part, a person who has never played the part, who isn't familiar with August Wilson's work. And the whole thing, I mean, the whole premise to me is ridiculous. It's the night before the festival. The woman who's going to take over doesn't know anything about this. The performances are kind of uneven. It's a 4-woman show. At least one of them is not ready. She goes up on her lines, at least the performance I saw all through the show, didn't remember her lines, kept coming in when she shouldn't have. And the premise of the show, I think it sort of undercuts the whole idea of feminism, that this woman would be too old or outdated to play this part. To me,
although you're saying this, and I'm thinking,
crazy.
This is how we see Hollywood so often play out. We delude ourselves, I think, to some degree, in thinking it's changed, especially after all the conversations we've had over the last few years. But it still seems like people are always looking for the younger, and you still have actors talking about having aged out of parts.
Ridiculous. You know, actors don't have expiration dates like athletes do. At least that's my point of view. But when you're talking about feminism at a women's theater festival, and you somehow say that an older performer's work is no longer relevant, even if there's a new performer who wants to do it and put their own take on it, I think the notion of real feminism is that it invites every woman to the stage at whatever stage of life she is in. And then there is collaboration, and there's evolution. But so this is like it's almost like a sitcom that doesn't quite work. The ensemble doesn't gel. This was a big disappointment for me. But hey, one woman's opinion. See it through April 12th. That's what I thought.
And again, that's Angry, Raucous, and Shamelessly Gorgeous, the Lyric Stage Company. Well, finally, let's move to another Massachusetts native. We talked about Julianne Nicholson. Chris Fleming, who, as I'm talking to you, I'm realizing sat in your very chair at this very desk when I was filling in for Marjorie Egan one day, and he was on with Jim Browdy and me. He's also been on The Culture Show, so you can go back and listen to that. But he then turned around and made fun of the very set we're sitting on right now in his act, which was really hilarious. But he has been on the rise, of course, has created any number of skits and characters that people have endeared him to so many people, and now he has his first HBO special.
Yeah, it's called Chris Fleming Live at the Palace. You know that moon trip we're taking today?
Yeah.
To the dark side of the moon that no one has seen? That's what being in Chris Fleming's company is like. It's like seeing something you've never seen before, but in a light in which you'd never thought about it before. And he's got this dazzling array of references that, I mean, he will talk about everything, freely associate from everything to like what's going on in that skillet you never wash to Beth in Little Women, okay? Now that's a quantum leap in my book. He talks about Terry Gross as a gunslinger hunting down Adam Driver. I mean, you know, this is a man's mind that is just dazzling to behold.
Well, it's also great
check it out.
The way he says words. Driscoll's, like the strawberries, the blackberries, all those containers. Yes. I can never look at one of those containers again. Driscoll's, without thinking of Chris Fleming. He's hilarious. His parents are probably listening right now, so we say hi to them.
I say hi to them, and I share a driveway with his Aunt Donna. So... yeah, and I've been in a wedding with Chris Fleming, so...
Massachusetts through and through.
Yeah, watch
Joyce,
the special.
Always great to see you. Thank you so much.
Not enough time.
Not enough, says the producer always. Culture Show contributor Joyce Kulhawik joins us regularly. She's an Emmy Award-winning arts and entertainment reporter, president of the Boston Theater Critics Association, and you can find her reviews on joyceschoices.com. Thank you for listening to another edition of The Culture Show. A programming note, tune in tonight as we carry President Trump's address to the nation here on 89.7. Our coverage begins at 9. We continue National Poetry Month tomorrow with David Duchovny and his new book of poetry. I'm Jared Bowen. Have a great day.
The Culture Show is made possible in part by a generous contribution from the Fiducia Fund, proud to support this station's arts and culture programming.
GBH at 4 with Marketplace at 6:30. But first, get a global view of the news with The World. Up next.